is overwhelming.
Inawezekana na itawezekana. Tulisema tangu mwanzo, ours is victory deferred, but it is coming home. Tumepeleka kesi mahakamani, ni kesi yenye ushahidi wa hali ya juu. Kama senior counsel nawaambia, ile kesi tuko nayo ni yenye nguvu kabisa. Sasa kwa vile iko kwa koti, tutangojea uamuzi. Lakini ni muhimu wananchi wajue ni nini tunasema. Tunasema ile ilifanyika ni uhalifu wa hali ya juu, criminal enterprise.
Odinga is disputing the victory of William Ruto, who was declared president-elect by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission chairperson Wafula Chebukati. On August 15th, the former Prime Minister accused Chebukati of bungling the polls and subverting the will of some 15 million people who participated in the election. Chebukati has been listed as a respondent in the petition, which will be heard and determined by a 7-judge bench of the Apex Court, chaired by Chief Justice Martha Koome. And a total of 9 presidential petitions were lodged at the Supreme Court, with 8 of them seeking to overturn President-elect William Ruto's victory. Ruto was declared the winner of the August 9th general election after sailing past the 50% plus 1 constitutional threshold that requires a winner in a presidential election to garner 50% of votes cast and an additional vote to avoid a runoff. Ruto's victory has, however, been challenged at the Apex Court by Odinga and 8 other petitioners who want the elections nullified and a fresh election conducted in accordance with the Law and Electoral Act. Apart from Odinga, other petitioners include John Njoroge Kamau, Daniel Kariuki Ngari, Julia Nyokabi, Khalif Khalifa, Okiya Omtata, Youth Advocacy Africa, and Ruben Kigame. Still at the Supreme Court, and Chama cha Kazi leader Moses Kuria filed a petition seeking to bar Raila Odinga's suit seeking to nullify President-elect William Ruto's win. In his suit papers, Kuria cites the violence at the Bomas of Kenya and came moments after Odinga filed his petition at the Supreme Court within the Milimani law courts. According to Kuria, Odinga used his chief agent Saitabao Ole Kanchori and others to cause violence at the Bomas of Kenya Tallying Center, hence hindering the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission chairman Wafula Chebukati from executing his duty, and accused him of violating the Constitution, the Elections Act, and the Code of Electoral Conduct. An Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission personnel preparing responses to the presidential election petitions filed at the Supreme Court were nearly attacked last night, according to the Commission. According to IEBC, the goons that attempted to attack its personnel were wielding crude weapons. IEBC further called on the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai to address the issue. The alleged attack came in the wake of 8 petitions filed at the Supreme Court challenging the results of the 2022 presidential election. In the petitions, IEBC, its chairperson Wafula Chebukati, and other commissioners have been widely named as respondents and are facing accusations of electoral malpractice, irregularities, and failure to uphold the Constitution. And finally, the Roots Party has summoned George Wajakoya's running mate Justina Wamai for a disciplinary action for misrepresenting the position of the party. The party is accusing Wamai of making public utterances both in the mainstream media and in social media, with the first incident being on August 3rd, when she publicly alleged that Wajakoya endorsed the candidature of the Azimio la Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga. The second incident cited occurred on the 19th of August, where Wamai is accused of acknowledging their competitor's victory after she publicly congratulated the President-elect William Ruto. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water,
right.
or Kamba, lack of traffic. Yeah. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues. If you are in a room And just about everybody in that room has a court case or another. What impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest
All right, second day of the
conversation.
week, and it looks like we're just getting up to a little bit of traffic. The rumblings are just starting this morning. Jogger Road inbound to the city and the roundabout at City Stadium might become something as you get towards Landis and then out towards Kamkunji. But we're still looking at early pickings, at least for now. Traffic has not become a thing just yet. And we're also looking at it starting to build up on the thicker superhighway, then coming into the city. All right, let's keep an eye on things, guys. Tell us what's going on where you are. Starting off Tuesday, right is what we are aiming for. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE. Let us know what's going on where you are, and we'll try to keep things moving as much as possible this Tuesday.
SpiceFM Nyeri. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
Minutes after 6. Good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's Tuesday, the 23rd day of August 2020. How many? 22. 14 days since polls opened at about this time, and we went to the polls, and now the Supreme Court is about to do something. Meanwhile, governors will be sworn in tomorrow or the day after.
The day after, Thursday.
Ndu,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Mimi. I'm doing all right, man.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. C.T. Muga, tell us again that story. Ati, old books.
Yes, I used to wonder because every time I saw an old person, of course I was clearly young then, they had some sort of a bag which they carried along with them. And when they removed the bag and they took out a notebook, that notebook was at best in tatters. Now, I understand because I myself have a book that is in tatters myself and I carry it along.
So you are now seeing what you saw.
Now I actually understand.
Yes.
Now you see it.
It isn't the state of the book. It's the value of what's inside.
The content.
Content, yes. So the other stuff you ignore.
So what is it that makes the book tattered then?
This is, let me use an English phrase, wear and tear. What it means, it's the use. You put it in the bag, you remove it, you place other things next to it, because this bag I carry is not just a bag of tricks. It's a mobile office.
Got it.
Yes.
It's got everything.
Yeah, it even has a kitchen.
Ish, man. Yes. Welcome to Kenya's
Oh,
biggest
ja.
conversation.
How are you, Eric?
I'm fine, thank
Well?
you. Yes,
you
yes.
can go on.
I don't have a bag. I have a notebook.
You have a notebook. We'll have a look at it in T minus 10 years or so.
Yes, see how it looks like. Yes? Way. So, how many conversations are we having? Many conversations today, right? We are looking back into, so what's happened yesterday. 9 applications were made at the Supreme Court of Kenya. 9 on the presidential election. 9 applications means 9 sets of lawyers means
And let's say each set has at least at least 2.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say 2 lawyers per applicant. And then how many respondents? IEBC is 1. Each commissioner is a single respondent. Those are 7. So that 8. William Ruto is a respondent.
Right. 9.
9 applicants, 9 respondents. Munataka hii
Interested
14
parties
days.
nayo.
Na bado nani hawajakuja kuapply hapo.
Is it okay for
Amicus.
Curie.
Is it all right to ask how many lawyers we have in the country? Because I'm about to ask, are other cases going on in the courts? Because if so many lawyers are going to be engaged in this one case.
Good
Will
question,
other work
actually,
be
that
done?
you raise.
Yes.
Because remember what we were told by Waiko Onyoike yesterday?
Yes.
That each applicant, if a serious applicant has a battery of lawyers who are working in the background, 50 in some
Yes.
cases,
Yes.
60.
Yes.
So now, 60 times 18.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I began to wonder because I have to ask.
Just hit me.
Yes,
All those.
there are a bit many. So are cases really going to be going on in court? Because you're talking about the best legal minds you can get.
Yep.
You're going to pull them out.
Yes, exactly.
All of them are there.
And what about the other cases?
Now you can
that-
imagine there are other petitions for the other seats.
Yes, they are.
You are a candidate for MP and you feel that you did not get justice in the results that were announced, so you want to file a petition. This is the time to work on that petition.
Precisely.
Go to a lawyer and they tell you, unajua tuko Supreme Court, ngoja kidogo.
Precisely. So that matter that was being looked into that was near completion.
We'll wait a bit.
This matter, yes, where you are owed money by certain entity and this
Goja, you know, before it was Goja elections issue. Ebu
Ngoja tu.
Goja tallying
petition
issue.
issue. Then now,
Goja
petition issue.
Wacha kuona vile petition itaenda.
Uzuri wa petition haina appeal. That's the only benefit.
Na ni 14 days
Yes,
tunajua.
no, 14 days.
What?
But that 14 days for some people, given the matters that they had, it's really a matter of life and death. Eh?
Oh yes. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So we'll be talking about that on the show today. And at 8 o'clock, we had an interesting guest before the election. His name is George Njoroge. He's a data security person. He'll be joining us again today. He's been working on the Azimio team, and he'll come and tell us because he's among those that have said to have sworn affidavits presented in the Supreme Court. Let's hear what he says about how the election was conducted, and then we'll also, of course, seek to understand what exactly he means. That is at 8 o'clock, and very many other conversations. Keep it here for that. Ndu. So now, there's COVID in the world, there's swine flu in Nakuru. Anyway, let's start with
There's
COVID
Lassa
in the
fever
world.
in Nigeria. My God, have mercy. Monkeypox, I don't know in America. Let's look at what COVID is telling us. 601 million cases, what we're looking at around the world. 601,561,186 to the letter. That's what we're looking at in terms of numbers. In Kenya, 6 new cases of COVID from a sample size of 640 gives Kenya a positivity rate of 0.9. 0 recoveries, 0 deaths. Very few people infected with COVID in the country at the moment. 3 out of Nairobi, 2 Uasin Gishu, and 1 in Meru County. All right. Now let's look at interesting news then making the headlines. Fauci, face of US COVID response, is probably going to say goodbye if this computer will allow me to do the thing. Yeah, there we go. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top U.S. infectious disease official who became the face of America's COVID-19 pandemic response under President Donald Trump and Joe Biden, announced Monday he's stepping down in December after 54 years of public service. So he's not 54 years old. He's in public service for 54 years. His efforts to fight the pandemic were applauded by many experts. He was vilified by Trump and many Republicans, it's said. He leaves his post as the chief medical advisor to Biden and director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which is part of the National Institutes of Health. And since he has headed since what? 1984. He's a veteran immunologist, has served under Ronald Reagan. So just know how far,
How far back we're
how
going.
long back the man has come.
7 presidents.
I'm telling you. 7 administrations he served through. So it said he's endured criticism. He's done 1, 2, 3. He became, he's been in the back work, but he really came to the fore during the COVID time. So it's time for him to step back, he says. Well done to him and all the work that he's done. There's a country called the Philippines. You know that place? Mm-hmm. Their children had not gone back to school since COVID made its debut on the globe. But now they are going back to in-person learning. Very many students who started school did not start in a classroom. So their experience for school in the entire education so far has been online. Now the country is opening up. In only just half of the schools, they will go back to school. And they're saying that, all right, COVID has come to the point whereby they can allow children to go back to school. Philippines imposed one of the longest lockdowns in the world to prevent the spread of COVID-19. There's some 27 million students across the country. They've had to study online for 2 years as this was imposed. But now, come September, they will go back to face-to-face classes Monday, not September rather, and the rest will stay online for now. The government hopes that all children registered to go to school will be back in classrooms by November, right? They're not taking any chances. And they're saying, look, do whatever you need to do. Even this going back to school, just a few of us will go. And as we see things progress, then we'll let the rest of the students go back if it works. All right? So that's what's going on with that in terms of COVID. Now, yesterday, remember, we saw that article that Dr. Githinji wrote. And he said, look, COVID-19 has shown us that we need to be prepared for the rest of the pandemics that will come. Not if they will come. They will come. It's just a matter of when. So even as you're saying, there's Lassa fever in Nigeria. There is smallpox. There is monkeypox. There is swine flu. There's this, that, the other thing. Let's just be prepared for another pandemic, which is why the insistence on a plant in Africa to then be able to deal with vaccines that can treat these things as quickly as possible. That's what it looks like for now.
Wow. We are live streaming the show. We always do this every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on SpiceFM KE, Facebook and YouTube. We are going to be looking at everybody who is online and saying hello to us and saying where they are tuned in from. Let's first take a look at the weather forecasts.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
Ceci, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do? Has anybody that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's 13 and clear in Nakuru, highs of 24. We'll see highs of 20 in a cloudy Nyeri at 13. And it's 11 degrees and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 22. 22 and cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 28. And we'll see highs of 28 in a cloudy Malindi, currently at 23. It's 20 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in Kakamega, where it's 18 and cloudy at the moment. Looking into Kampala, it's partly cloudy cloudy at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 18. 27 will be the high in a cloudy Dar es Salaam, currently at 21. It's 6 degrees and mostly clear in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 5. And it's raining this Lagos morning at 24, highs of 27, back down to lows of 24. Mostly clear conditions at 22 in Kinshasa, highs of 29. And looking out into Beijing, Tuesday afternoon is mostly cloudy at 27. It'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 19. Cloudy conditions out in Paris at 18, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 26 in a cloudy London, currently at 19. It's a rainy Monday night in New York. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 22.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings. 21 minutes after 6. Good morning. Who's online?
Everybody, Nakato Bridget is tuning in from Magiwa. Where's Magiwa?
Magiwa ni hapa tu.
Happy?
Hapa tu.
Oh, okay, sawa.
Ndio ukienda hivi eh? Then ukishaenda unaenda hivi eh?
Si mbali sana na hapa.
Then ukienda straight hapo.
Hey, Cheer Titus Tanui says, good morning, tuned in from Nairobi. Robert Sanga says he's tuned in from Colorado Springs in Colorado. It's at night, Monday night there, isn't it? Shamungwai says, good morning, tuning from Rongai in Nakuru. And Osama Jr. says, I want to be a lawyer now. Well, looks like it could be lucrative. at least once every 5 years, at least. It could be something that you could do.
Is there a song that perhaps goes with, I know that I want to be a millionaire. There's a song.
I want to be a legal mind.
Okay,
so
right.
freaking bad.
So there's a song.
There's always a song. Everybody's got. Okay. Cynthia McQuesley says, good morning. However, any lawyer, she says, yes, don't worry. There are over 18,000 lawyers in the country, so cases will still move on. So CT, put your worry to rest. Shiro Brenda says, bonjour, mes amis.
18,000 lawyers?
Yeah, in the country. So they only have like 2,000 they're using for the petition. Everybody else is okay. Yeah?
There are other lawyers dealing with land,
Other
with
things.
labor disputes, with... Okay.
Right.
Shiro
Okay.
Brenda says, bonjour, mes amis. Ready to learn? Yes. Bonjour, mon ami. Karibu sana. Good morning, watching and listening from Nakuru. Waberu Ngeze says, good morning from Loresho. Lovely hibiscus. Hey, what are those? David Mogaka says, good morning, tuning from Babadogo. Good morning. The only way to start your day, waiting patiently for CT's proverb. CT, don't disappoint Davy. Magotia Kunguni. Hey, what are those? What is that?
Kunguni.
Magoti's knees, right?
Magoti's knees. Kunguni. Think of a certain vermin that inhabits people's hair sometimes.
Lice.
Bed bug.
Ew.
Picture Magoti a bed bug.
No, thank you. Tuned in from Doha, that's where Magoti is this morning. So many of you tuned in Abu Dhabi, that's where Sabit is. Mike Karaoke Mwangi tuned in from Utawala diaspora. I'm telling you, it's the diaspora. You're with me, my man.
Hey.
Yeah, Clyde Chihemi is tuned in from Kakamega. Praxis says good morning. Ondicho's tuned in from Kwamtutsi. Mak Ogola says it was the mother of all evidence. All right. Good morning. Osama said he's inside the room already. And Bay Wamacha, we see you. Bethwell, good morning to you. Stephen Bogo, we see you as well. Good morning. CT Ndu and Eric, Niko hapa katikati ya Gigi, Ku Nawas. Peter is here. Seth Odiwar is tuned in from Oyugis, Homa Bay County. And good morning, guys. Did you see the lorry full of evidence? I saw it too.
That lorry was not full.
Well,
a lorry, as long as it's carrying anything, it's full.
It's full.
Okay. The lorry was full.
The lorry was full.
Right.
Yes.
Rounded out with Peter Njoroge, who says, good morning, gang, tuning from Kiambu. Just wanting to appreciate you all for making a morning better. Asante sana. Thanks, guys, for joining in this morning.
Welcome. City, are we still there?
We are there.
Okay.
We are there. One more day.
One more
That's
day.
night.
Oh,
This
sorry.
is If you fear something, you give power to it.
If you fear something, you give power to it.
Yes.
Say it again, brother.
Implying what? By fearing something, you're giving power to it? Or if you fear something, then you should give power to it?
I think both are applicable, really, if you think about it. Because it's one of these things where whether it's the road less traveled or is the road much traveled, so long as the destination is the same, same. Same ni se? Same.
Same the same. Okay, the difference is the same. www.standardmedia.co.ke. Go there for all the in-depth coverage, especially of what has been filed by the various applicants for this particular petition in the Supreme Court. We'll be looking at those stories in the 7 o'clock hour, all the stories surrounding the application in the Supreme Court. But first, let's look at the headlines. What's in the front pages?
Front page of the Standard today, Raila, my case against the IEBC as the male leader wants the Supreme Court to scrutinize the results and declare him president-elect. Should that not pass, he wants the court to order IEBC to provide a fresh election. Raila also wants Chebukati declared incompetent and unfit to hold public office. Was it stolen is a question the nation is asking on its headline. In a bombshell petition to the Supreme Court, Raila Odinga exposes what he says was a well-oiled scheme to rig this year's election, including the recruitment of hackers to infiltrate the results portal and alter forms, and the infiltration could work here, of votes in favour of Ruto across the country, and especially in his strongholds. For these fraudulent schemes, the Azimio leader wants Ruto's win invalidated.
Okay. The Star?
Oddly enough, I do not have the Star today.
That's odd.
No, by the time I passed my person, my person
had not personed.
Was not there.
Was not personing.
Yes.
Person not personing.
Person unpersoned.
Surely.
But I did see the headline online. Yes.
Okay. What was the headline?
And it talks about Raila claiming that there were 56 individuals who were involved in defrauding him of his victory.
56?
56 was the number in the Star. 56.
Okay.
How they counted and got to 56, now that is a story, isn't it?
The detail of the petition.
Yes, exactly. But he said 56.
Okay. We'll be looking at all those stories about the petition from 7 to 8. Let's look at other stories. So first of all, if you are in any other county apart from Kakamega and Mombasa, your governor is being sworn in on Thursday.
Yes.
Yes? Higher, let's go to Nakuru. Swine flu outbreak. 1 child dead, 8 admitted in Nakuru. The swine flu outbreak in Nakuru County has led to the death of 1 child. 8 other children are being treated at the Rift Valley Provincial General Hospital and Kaptangwanyi Health Center in Elementaita, Gilgil Sub-County. According to authorities, those admitted to the 2 hospitals are in stable condition as of yesterday. Dr. Daniel Wainaina, who is the county chief officer of health, said they received an alert from Kaptangwanyi Health Center on the 27th of July at the Public Health Emergency Center. He says the center's director noticed an increase in the number of children who presented with high fever, cough, and difficulty in breathing. The majority of those admitted to the center were children under the age of 1 year. Swine flu is a respiratory infection in humans caused by an influenza strain that originated in pigs. The H1N1 virus strain causes the flu. As of yesterday, the county's Department of Health had reported 140 cases of swine flu since the outbreak on that 27th of July. 75 of the 140 cases involved men, 65 were women. A team of surveillance officers who reported the outbreak is on the ground to monitor the situation and implement necessary measures for the virus. The remaining children were treated and discharged, and Wainaina assured them that their conditions were stable. He noted that none of them returned to the hospital to report a virus relapse. Here? So what's happening? The flu has been linked to the cold weather this month, despite the fact that most cases are reported between February and April. The department says the flu outbreak trend varies depending on the climatic conditions, and that although cases are typically reported once a year, they've increased. The country has experienced an unusual change in climate and unpredictable weather over the last 2 years. I did not know that there has been swine flu in this country.
I did not know that either.
I remember the swine flu global outbreak. I didn't know it was here. Now they're saying it's been here and happening between February and April. Hiya.
It's interesting. Is I'm just checking. I'm looking at those numbers. Is COVID an H1 virus as well? Is it in that category?
COVID is COV.
No,
it's a COV.
It's not an H1.
It's not.
Okay. All right. H1 was...
it was swine flu.
It was swine flu.
And then there was
there's an
bird
H1
flu.
for bird flu. Thank you. Avian flu is what... So when we're looking towards the animals is when we had started with H, I believe. I was just trying to make the connection then between why they're saying the onset of the cold weather would bring about infections of swine flu. Because previously there was no that connection was not there.
This is the thing about science and its progression. People get to know more with time.
Yeah.
You start off with something, and what seems alarming is based on the knowledge you have at that particular point in time. As research is furthered, you get to know more, so matters pertaining to that particular ailment become less alarming and less frightening. The question though, and this has been asked but never conclusively responded to, is the relation with all these outbreaks of diseases with climate change, global warming, etc., etc. Yes. Because flus have been there from time immemorial. Is it that they are newer diseases, or is it that we're now giving names to diseases that have been there and we hadn't quite identified them and been able to give them a specific name and with an explanation to follow as to why it is that name is thus pronounced?
Indeed.
Or have you been getting new diseases, periodically over time?
Yes, it's very possible.
They go, they come, they stay, come, mutate, they change into something else.
Yes, they do.
They go. Okay. What else?
You want to do it now?
Okay, let's take a break then.
Okay.
It's 28 minutes 7. So, Nakata Bridget is telling you Magiwa is in Ngumo Estate, just after Kemri.
Oh, okay.
You know where Ngumo is?
Yes.
So I told you, if you head this way.
No, you didn't. You said this way.
Yeah, that's what I did, this way. I did.
Even if you went this way, you could still turn around.
Thank you.
Haven't you used Google? That lady in Google Maps.
You end up in Namibia.
Turn southwest.
You end up in Namibia, which is where Nomle Odette Kangutue is tuning in from this morning, saying good morning from Windhoek in Namibia.
Nomle
Odette Kangutui.
Good morning.
Windhoek
is in Namibia.
Oh, Windhoek.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, what has changed in about half an hour? Looking as the minutes tick by, traffic has built up on the Thika Superhighway. Then getting into the CBD is looking like it's going to be a bit difficult today. Just before that Pangani underpass, traffic is already at bumper-to-bumper levels. Juja Road, in and outbound traffic is already doing the thing this morning. Looks like it's just going to be a very busy Tuesday, as a busy Monday as it was yesterday. Muranga Road, going towards that Globe Cinema roundabout, overpass, interchange, whatever you want to call it this morning, is already looking pretty busy. Kamkunji is also pretty busy as you're getting towards the roundabout. Jogo Road started early and we're still looking at that develop over time. Mombasa Road is not looking bad. You get into the city without too much of an issue, at least for now. Enterprise Road, we're looking at outbound traffic. Folks are looking for a quicker route to get into the city. Mombasa Road is actually not that bad right now, but likely to clog up as we go along. Let's know what's going on where you are this morning. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
All right.
Nairobi.
So now.
So, one of those words they used to use, landmark, monumental, etc., etc. Fines should not exceed loan, borrowed, help, told. Remember, we sat here in this room a few months ago talking with a few who had decided that they were going to petition an IEBC, you see now it's IEBC, help rather, in terms of money that they had borrowed for their education, and now that they were seeing their fines were exceeding the actual money that they borrowed. The High Court in Nairobi has dealt a blow to the Higher Education Loans Board following a declaration that it is not entitled to recover an amount exceeding the principal advanced to a beneficiary. Justice Alfred Mabeya is, in a judgment delivered last week, issued a declaration that Section 15.2 of the HELP Act is unconstitutional to the extent that it leads to interest rates and fines becoming more than the principal amount advanced. The judge made the ruling in a suit filed by Anne Mugure, Davis Nguthu and Wangoi Washira against HELP. He said HELP, by imposing interest amounts and penalties or fines that exceed the principal amount, contravened the Constitution. The judge said Section 15.2 of the HELP Act is unconstitutional to the extent that it leads to the fines becoming more than the principal amount borrowed. Mugure, Nguthu and Wangoi, in a suit filed in 2021, said they borrowed loans from HELP to facilitate the undergraduate studies. HELP, they noted, has been charging exorbitant interest and penalties, which often grew beyond double the principal amounts owed, thereby making repayment difficult. And I remember when we had the conversation that day, even one of our producers here said, share my story and say, look here, me too. I came out of university and the money that I've been paying on a regular basis
It's three times
the money that I borrowed. So HELP says, the court says, all right, put a plug in this thing. Stop it. We're not going to allow you to do this. On November 19th, 2020, through its Twitter handle, HELP threatened to publish the names and photos, including leading newspapers of defaulters since 1975, and issued a 30-day repayment notice. Mugure had borrowed $82,000 in July 24 on July 2004 at an interest rate of 2%. As of July 2016, the debt had accumulated to $540,000. Nguthu borrowed $146,000 in July 2016 and 5 years later was asked to pay $335,000. Wangoi borrowed $135,000 in 2016 and 5 years later, the amount had tripled to $336,000. They said the debts had doubled and tripled the principal amounts, adding that the interest rates and penalties were exorbitant and contravened the beneficiaries' socio-economic rights as enshrined in the Constitution.
I have to ask though, when you take a loan, whether it is a HELP loan or it is a SACCO loan or a bank loan, there is a form that you sign.
Yes.
When you sign that form, it is believed or it is understood that you have read the details and have understood what it is that your responsibility as a borrower is, or your responsibilities are. Okay? The court, of course, is the final arbiter in such a matter.
Yeah.
But I'm simply wondering aloud, did the judgment say that they contravened the terms and conditions of the agreement? Or are they saying that the very terms and conditions of that agreement
that's what they have
are contrary to what was it?
What is it they're saying? Is it contrary to the HELP Act or is the HELP Act contrary to the Constitution?
So, the judgment says the HELP Act itself specifically Section 15.2 is unconstitutional.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So the whole kit and caboodle.
The reason why I'm asking this question, do you know the Pandora's box that this has now opened?
Do you know how many people have paid and are going to come back and say, hold on a minute? Or people who are currently in debt?
Yes, and people who will say, refund.
Yes, give me back my money.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question.
And remember, just 7 months ago, help had come out because there were people who were applying for help to be able to go to school. And help had either reduced significantly the amounts that they were giving to students or telling students that we have nothing actually to give at the moment and were pleading with people to pay their loans so that they could essentially give out to other people. So should that happen, the big question is where are they going to get the money from? Because already they're cash strapped.
Indeed. And also remember when we spoke to the HELB CEO, what's his name?
I can't remember at this moment.
When he came, he told us, I understand exactly what these people are saying, but my hands are tied because it's the law. It's in the act, and I am supposed to act in accordance with the law. So if I don't do this, somebody will go to court and say, or somebody will even go to parliament and say, this CEO is not following the HELB Act. Charles Ringera. Yeah. So Charles Ringera told us, I completely understand. Even he was like, okay, the thing I can do is I cannot waive what is in the law. So he was implying that he sort of supports that petition in court.
There was a gentleman by the name of Donde, an MP for Game.
Joe.
Yes. Whether Joe is just the full name or it's short for Joseph or Josephat, one doesn't know. But the
just
point...
Joe.
Just Joe, okay? Now, because of his efforts, what came into operation in this country was what we call the Daplum law. Okay? Now, it's a very interesting one. He simply said the interest on a debt will cease to run interest where the total amount of arreared interest has accrued to an amount equal to the outstanding principal debt. Meaning you just can't keep charging and charging kofupi and charging and charging. Yes. But even with this rule, unless you're aware of it, financial institutions and other institutions that lend money will continue doing that.
I reckon that financial institutions do not want you to be aware of the Dublin law because then that means you could essentially come and say, hold on a minute, I owe 500 shillings and you're asking me to pay 1,500 according to the law, and you keep adding on top of that? According to the law, no.
That's why I said, this particular ruling, watch and see. It will open
up.
Folks are going to start jumping out of the woodwork.
They will. They will. They most certainly will.
What other story are you looking at, City?
I am looking at something very interesting in the East African, right? It's a story regarding the Kiswahili language. And this is what the story states. The Tanzanian president, Samia Hassan, wants more countries in the region to adopt Kiswahili to boost integration. Now, there are 4 languages within the region that are considered fundamental and key. That is the English language, French, and Portuguese. And she's saying that in addition to this, so that we integrate and we are able to communicate infinitely better, okay, let's adopt Kiswahili.
Which region is she talking about?
East Africa.
Okay.
East and Central.
They've not adopted? Okay, sorry.
No.
Sorry. Okay.
This was on her visit to
Portuguese iko East Africa.
East and Central.
Okay. Mozambique and Angola.
Huko ni Southern. Waende SADC.
East and Central.
Tuko EAC.
East and Central.
Go on.
Okay. Central South. Okay. This was during her visit to, this name gives me problem.
Samatu.
Kinshasa. Yes, got it. Okay. For the 42nd SADC Summit. Okay.
It was SADC, yes.
Yes. And she said that a policy framework should be adopted to ensure that this particularly takes place and that this can be fast-tracked. Now, I say this, and I found it interesting because Swahili, for many people, is a lingua franca for business and for communication.
Yes.
But whether it is an official language that people actually use and is taught is a completely different matter. It is taught Tanzania, it is taught here, it is spoken in DRC,
Uganda,
it is spoken in Uganda, it's spoken ish in Rwanda. But the problem in some of these countries, it is spoken of and considered to be a language not really of any high repute.
Yeah.
Because a language known amongst certain individuals and certain groupings of people.
I think within the EAC, it's only Southern Sudan that does not have Swahili. But in all these other countries, Swahili is. Uganda was the last one to pick it up as an official language. So SADC countries, it's good that Samia is actually spreading Swahili tentacles southwards.
You know, we need to give Southern Sudan a break. They have issues that they need to deal with and sort out first. Then this issue of languages can come in. Okay, just...
Yeah, and I think you're really looking at the entrenchment of Swahili in Tanzania, for example, because even if you're looking at school learning, all subjects are taught in Swahili.
By the way, this CBC, what again was the Swahili word for warthog?
It was porcupine.
Porcupine, sorry.
Nungu nungu. And then parachichi is avocado. I won't forget. Parachichi sounds like parachute.
Yes. So nungu nungu alikula parachichi.
Ndio hiyo sasa.
Right.
Alipata wadhifa. So boss. Oh, you have a story. Please go ahead. I wanted to tell you something, but please go ahead.
Let me tell you this one.
Okay.
You know, governors are coming into office. So let me tell you the story of 3 governors. No, I have 4, but let me just tell you about this one. Wavinya Ndeti in Machakos.
If you put something in your heart,
you will die. Ukiweka kitu kwa roho, utakufa. She says for years, residents of Machakos County have been relying on water from River Athi, which is contaminated, harmful to their health. She's urging residents to shun consuming water from the River Athi, adding that a cleanup exercise in collaboration with the national government process is underway. We have initiated talks with the national government and the governments of Kiambu, Nairobi and Kajiado, which are jointly responsible for discharging emissions into the river with an aim of reversing the trend and cleaning up the water resource. So that is Governor number 1, amesema Athi River, we are cleaning. Governor number 2, Laikipia. The new administration will reinstate 61 doctors and specialists who were fired 3 years ago by Governor Nderitu Mureithi. The newly re-elected Governor Joshua Irongo promised yesterday to reinstate them after his predecessor allegedly failed to honor a court order that reinstated them. Irongo, who's set to be sworn in on Thursday, said he'd meet with them to discuss the matter. Agenda number 1 huyo ni nini? Ni rudisha madaktari. Let me take you to Kilifi County. Food insecurity, acute water shortage, and rising cases of gender-based violence will be top of Kilifi Governor-elect Gideon Mungaro's agenda when he is sworn in on Thursday. He takes office amid a prolonged drought, which has left thousands of families grappling with hunger. Our priority is to rescue our people from this hunger. That's why we'll have our assembly pass a supplementary budget so that we can buy food for the affected families. That is where? That is Kilifi. Let me take you to Uasin Gishu. The governor-elect, Kotimoja Jonathan B., has said he is ready to roll out his plans to transform the county, promising to ensure all programs are people-driven. While public expectations are high, B's administration, just like any other, faces several challenges in its endeavors, including the delayed release of devolved funds by the National Treasury. However, Kotimoja is confident that he will leave a mark in the county as he picks up from where Mandago left. One of the advantages that he is bringing is that he'll enjoy a majority support in the county assembly. His UDA alliance has 26 out of the 30 MCAs. And speaking of a majority and minority, let me now tell you the last story from the counties. I take you to Trans Nzoia. Trans Nzoia Governor-elect George Natembeya is walking a tightrope even as he begins his 5-year term in office on Thursday when he will be sworn in. Among the challenges that the former administrator is facing is how to pass bills now that Azimio la Umoja does not have enough members in the county assembly. DAP-K, and whose ticket Natembeya won his seat, is a member of the coalition. The former Rift Valley Regional Commissioner garnered 158,000 plus votes against Chris Omalo of UDA, who got 79,000. So he got double this guy. But Azimio affiliate parties did not get enough MCAs to push the county executive agenda in the assembly. Together, the parties won 8 seats out of 25. UDA got 13 seats. Ford Kenya and ANC got 3. and 1 respectively. UDA got a majority of the seats in that assembly. Kenya Kwanza has a majority of seats in the Trans Nzoia County Assembly. The governor is from Azimio. He'll have a minority in the House.
Interesting times ahead.
Tough ones. All right. Those are the 4 or 5 stories from the counties.
I just thought to tell you, CT, Idris Adam Khalil is tuned in from N'Djamena in.
Is that not somewhere in West Africa?
It's where your proverbs have been coming from.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Chad.
Yes, yes.
Capital.
Voila.
Yeah.
C'est ça. So who says hello?
Oh, hello also. Thank you.
At a time when there's a lot.
Hello too.
Hello too.
Hello also.
Alarm
Now that the
hospital.
former president was called Idris Deby. What's the current president called?
They remember they had a coup there.
There was a guy who went to fight and he didn't come back.
Didn't come back from the front lines.
There's also a rebel leader who has now come back because they have peace talks. A gentleman by the name of Timam Erdimi. Okay? So there are matters that are in the process of actually being resolved in Chad.
Indeed,
Okay.
they are. Alarm as hospitals run out of test kits, condoms, derailing war on HIV. An acute shortage of HIV testing kits and condoms has hit public health facilities across Makwene County, compromising the war against HIV and AIDS. There are fears that the situation will lead to a sharp increase in HIV infections and other STIs, sexually transmitted diseases, as well as unwanted pregnancies. Remember, just a few weeks ago, when we were talking with the good doctors here about the spread of HIV and why we are seeing high numbers, these are some of the factors that they brought up that day. Condoms are normally given given free of charge in public hospitals. The shortage has extended to hotels and restaurants where condom dispensers have run out of the commodity. A spot check by the Standard in various public hospitals in Kibwezi, Makindu, Kathonzweni, Matiliku, Mboni, as well as Makwene County Referral Hospital established that the kits and contraceptives were in short supply, forcing users to buy them from chemists at an extra cost. A junior medic at Kathonzweni Hospital, who is not authorized to speak to the media, revealed that prenatal care is also facing a major challenge as the facility lacks testing kits to help prevent possible mother-to-child HIV transmission. Sex workers along the Mombasa Nairobi highway have not been spared either. Catherine Kilonzo, the team leader of Mtito Ande sex workers, said the lack of HIV testing kits is affecting their work. Working without the test kits is a big challenge for us. Some of our clients reject condoms. That's why we carry the kits around. Are they like, will you get rapid results kind of thing from those kits, CT? Okay, that's why. All right. Makwene.
So don't use a condom, let's do a test.
Yes. So we're just going to make sure that we are both safe, right?
Okay.
Makwene Sub-County Public Health Officer Joseph Kavoy confirmed the shortage of male condoms, saying they fear the scarcity may persist. Dr. Andrew Mulu, our good friend, the Director of Medical Services at the Ministry of Health, downplayed the shortage. He said, "We have enough test kits in the country. The problem is between KEMSA and counties with debts running into the millions of shillings." That thing comes back to bites. And that's what we are seeing.
It always does, doesn't it?
Where? Okay. There was a story I wanted to show you here, which is Kenya Pipeline. The Kenya Pipeline Company is applying for a 36% increase on tariffs charged for transporting and storing fuel, a pass-on cost that could see pump prices rise once more. The latest application by KPC to the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, shows that charges at the Nairobi depot would be increased from the current 2,074.5 per cubic meter of petroleum to 2,617 within the financial year 22-23 and rise further in the 23-24 and still further in the 24-25 financial year. All marketing firms evacuating for oil from the Eldoret depot will bear the brunt of the planned tariff increase, with costs set to rise from the current 3,600 to 4,200. Already, levies and taxes make about 40% of the total cost of petrol, 37% of diesel, 36% of the cost of kerosene, contributing to the prevailing record high prices. Oil marketers are currently paying 705 bob per cubic meter of fuel for transportation, storage and bundling. The companies pass on these costs to consumers. So the charges cater for the cost that KPC incurs for pumping the fuel through its pipeline losses, the cost of evacuation of fuel from the pipeline to the road tankers, the depot losses, and the cost of delivering the fuel to petrol stations that are within 40 kilometers of Nairobi. The company also wants to use the additional billions of shillings that it aims to raise from the tariff review to recover costs used to upgrade its pipeline network and holding facilities. So now it is for IPRA to review. They met last week with the officials from KPC to iron out sticky issues in the parastatal's tariff application, even as public scrutiny of the proposed tariffs began yesterday in Kisumu.
But you know what this just means at the end of the day? Is that they can talk about wanting to raise the price because of storage and etc. etc. But at the end of the day, the person who is going to feel the brunt of this is the person who's got to put fuel in their tank.
Yep.
That's what it is.
It's the consumer.
Yes.
But the trend has been set. You see, the consumer is the donkey that always bears this burden. So you can have this discussion as much as you like, but the trend has been set and the examples are cast in concrete. KRA will just keep raising our taxes willy-nilly. So what stops a government agency from looking at the numbers and saying,
doing the same?
These numbers will suit us fine. After all, if they've been able to continuously pay this, what makes you think they will not be able to pay more? So the thing is, when you're buffeted with so many increases, the thing that is lost in the conversation is perhaps the rationale, which may be reasonable as to why it is that these proposals are being made. Because we understand, with KRA, they have to raise revenue. They money has to be brought into the national coffers. We get it, okay? But in the absence of a corresponding benefit that the taxpayers receive or feel or perceive that they have received, then there'll be the hue and cry, unfortunately.
Yep.
Final story before we go to the top of the hour? I have one.
Okay.
A scorned husband who plunged a penknife into the neck of his estranged wife, then set himself alight inside her car in front of horrified construction workers at the weekend, has left family and friends in shock. Miss Munyao survived a stabbing and arson attack planned by her estranged husband, Dennis Musyoka, who's 34 years old, minutes after honoring his request to bond with their daughter at an open field within Nasra Estate in Embakasi. Mr. Musyoka died. According to witnesses, the couple has been living separately for a while but had made arrangements for their daughter to visit her father on Sundays. Miss Munyao was seen driving to the field at around 11 a.m., accompanied by the daughter, who sat in the front passenger seat of her Honda Vetzel. A few minutes later, she was joined by Mr. Musyoka, who was seen walking to the car with a bag on his back. He entered the car, sat in the back seat. Inside the bag, Musyoka had hidden a penknife which he used to stab his estranged wife on the neck and back, and fuel that he used to torch himself and the vehicle. A construction worker in the area, Brian Kamau, said they saw a bleeding woman rushing out of the vehicle screaming for help and pleading with them to rescue her child. We then saw smoke coming out of the vehicle and realized that the car was burning from inside. To avoid an explosion, we extinguished the fire and smashed the car's front windows to rescue the child. Stephen Mutiso, who witnessed the incident, said from his back seat, he stabbed the woman who was seated in the driver's seat twice and the child before starting the fire that killed him.
Stabbed the child as well?
Yep. Police say the woman and child were rushed to Mama Lucy for treatment. The child was, however, transferred to Kenyatta for specialized treatment in critical condition. The man died.
Yeah.
Things that you can't talk about.
Absolutely.
Anyway, keep it here for more coming up in the next hour, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Oseto. Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga filed a petition to the country's top court challenging the outcome of the August 9th general election in what he called a fight for democracy and good governance. Odinga, a veteran politician, had rejected the outcome of the poll that delivered victory to his rival William Ruto, branding it a travesty.
Tumesema ushahidi tuko nazo ya kutosha kuonyesha yale maovu yalifanyika, na tumesema vile vile hata wakuu wafanyikazi wa tume ya uchaguzi wakaongozwa na yule mwenyekiti wao walifanya maovu mengi zaidi. Ukiona mwenyekiti mwenyewe akitofautiana na wanachama wake na kutangaza hata kama ma constituencies 31 kutoka yao yalikuwa hajawekwa pale.
On the moves being made by Ruto, who has gone on a charm offensive of Azimio-affiliated parties, Odinga said they will not be cowed but will stand and fight for their space.
The activities that make it clear voters and votes do not matter have progressively reduced voter turnout in Kenya. At times, the cartels have triggered intense conflict between security forces and themselves as they strive to compromise elections. Slowly but steadily, these forces are killing our hard-won democracy and are trying to return Kenya into a one-party state in their own interests. You have seen the speed with which they have moved to buy elected leaders just within 1 week. After being denied the numbers at lower levels elections, like members of the National Assembly, members of the county assemblies and governors, these corruption cartels are working and buying leaders who have been elected on other parties' tickets to kill our democracy and also make the work of containing corruption at lower levels equally less effective.
And Azimio Umoja One Kenya running mate Martha Karua has affirmed that the coalition has a watertight case in the petition challenging the win by President-elect William Ruto. Karua, who alongside our leader Raila Odinga filed the petition to the Supreme Court, asserted that the evidence they have gathered is overwhelming.
Inawezekana na itawezekana. Tulisema tangu mwanzo, ours is victory deferred, but it is coming home. Tumepeleka kesi mahakamani, ni kesi yenye ushahidi wa hali ya juu. Kama senior counsel nawaambia, ile kesi tuko nayo ni yenye nguvu kabisa. Sasa kwa vile iko kwa koti, tutangojea uamuzi. Lakini ni muhimu wananchi wajue ni nini tunasema. Tunasema ile ilifanyika ni uhalifu wa hali ya juu, criminal enterprise.
Odinga is disputing the victory of William Ruto, who was declared president-elect by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission chairperson Wafula Chebukati on August 15th. The former Prime Minister has accused Chebukati of bungling the polls and subverting the will of 15 million people who participated in the election. Chebukati has been listed as a respondent in the petition, which will be heard and determined by a 7-judge bench of the Apex Court chaired by Chief Justice Martha Koome. And a total of 9 presidential petitions were lodged at the Supreme Court, with 8 of them seeking to overturn President-elect William Ruto's victory. Ruto was declared winner by Chebukati after garnering 50% plus 1 constitutional threshold. Ruto's victory has, however, been challenged at the Apex Court by Odinga and 8 other petitioners, including John Njoroge Kamau, Daniel Kariuki, Julia Nyokabi, Khalif Khalifa, Okiya Mtata, Youth Advocacy Africa, and Ruben Kigame. And Chama cha Kazi leader Moses Kuria has filed a petition seeking to bar Raila Odinga's suit seeking to nullify President-elect William Ruto's win. In his suit papers, Kuria cites the violence at the Bomas of Kenya and came moments after Odinga filed his petition at the Supreme Court within the Milimani courts. According to Kuria, Odinga used his chief agent Saitabao Ole Kanchori and others to cause violence at the Bomas of Kenya Tallying Center, hence hindering the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission chairperson Wafula Chebukati from executing his duty, and accused him of violating the Constitution, the Elections Act, and the Code of Electoral Conduct. And the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission personnel preparing responses to the presidential election petitions filed at the Supreme Court were nearly attacked last night. This is according to the Commission. According to IEBC, the goons that attempted to attack its personnel were wielding crude weapons. IEBC further called on the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai to address the issue. This is Newswire. Dennis Oseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM. Nakuru.
A little bit of it here and there on Langata Road. We're also looking at Lunga Lunga Road, in and outbound traffic connecting with Jogo Road, coming out towards Lusaka and then towards Likoni on Mombasa Road, connecting with the interchange. There's traffic there. There's also traffic that has built up quite significantly on the Thika Superhighway coming through to the city. Also, it's doing that thing on Kiambu Road as well as Limuru Road. This morning, coming out of Westlands doesn't look too bad. We'll see some build-up of traffic on James Gishuru as you get out towards Waiaki Way. It's not too painful, but likely to clog up further as we go along. Let's take a quick look at Outer Ring. That's picking up as well. Kangunda Road is an absolute mess. It's trying to connect to the Outer Ring and then out towards the Thika Superhighway from the other direction. Manyanja is also piling up as well. Into traffic hour, probably a little earlier than 7:30, but we'll keep an eye on things and see how it progresses through Tuesday. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Let's keep things moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7
the
minutes
only
after 7.
way to
Good
start
morning.
your day.
Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. It's the 23rd day of August 2022. We are here until 10 a.m. this morning. C.T. Muga starts the hour with the day's proverb.
If you fear something, you give power to it.
If you fear something, you give power to it.
Yes, you do.
Proverb from Chad.
Yes.
Explain it.
Look at it this way. There are people who have what we call phobias. Now, phobia, people refer to as an irrational fear. I've often wondered, there is a rational fear. I guess there is. But when an irrational fear takes hold of you, let's put it this way, it actually engulfs you. So everything about you goes into panic mode. I didn't understand this until, for instance, this particular concept, until I realized the first time I ever flew, until I realized I was claustrophobic. I did not like confined spaces.
You're claustrophobic?
Was. I got cured.
Allah?
Yes. Because I entered a Tweety Bird. The planes that went to Kisumu were small little airlines.
Tweety Bird. I love it.
And I couldn't believe it. Cold in the morning, I started sweating inside the plane. I couldn't understand it. Then I suddenly felt I couldn't breathe. So every time I flew, I avoided flying. I would actually have to turn on the air conditioner that it would blow into my face. And this urge and to walk out and get in the fresh air was always very strong. Now, that was fear. So I actually went and talked to a professional about this. They gave me a lengthy explanation. With time, I overcame it. Okay? But that fear, even when there is nothing wrong, because there was nothing wrong, other people were in the plane and they were fine. I couldn't look around and understand, but I was the only one who was having that problem. Everyone seemed to be comfortable and they were sitting. I was the only one who was feeling like I was suffocating. Now, so for me, this proverb makes sense because I can go back into my own history and I can say how just the fear of that confined space would actually take control of my life completely.
You became powerless.
Completely. You are fine even climbing the stairs and getting in the plane. Then you sit down and suddenly you want to get up and run out. Literally.
So what did the professional do? How do you get healed from that?
the professional actually explained to me what was happening and says that usually such fears are related to something else, but it manifests itself in that particular position. And he says, he asked the question, you need to ask yourself, this is what he told me, what it is that you are actually afraid of. I said, and the fear is because there are certain things in your life you have not come to terms with.
So you have some anxieties inside.
The anxiety arises from something you haven't come to terms with and you are unwilling to face. Okay? Now, the confined space in your mind gives you the impression that all these things that you haven't sorted out are coming at you.
Now.
Yes. So it manifests itself in your feeling you have a problem breathing. You are breathing fine until you sat down. Then suddenly you can't breathe. Suddenly there isn't enough air. And suddenly you need to have this air condition blowing into your face. Then you suddenly feel that you're slightly better. I avoided long travels for the longest time because of that. I would always find an excuse not to travel long distances.
But it's only for the small planes.
No, even when the planes became a little bigger, I still had the problem.
Even
That's
the
why.
jumbo of the jumbo. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. 4 aisles.
Yes,
don't care.
I didn't matter. It didn't matter. But again, but once this was explained to me, and I gave it thought, and I actually prayed about it seriously, with time, the rationale became clearer in my head, and I realized it is I who was allowing the panic to set in. So if I got into a plane and I didn't panic, I'd be fine. But you'd find mid-air suddenly, the fear would come and then it would go.
So you're constantly battling.
Yes, but with the time...
Someone sitting next to you just hearing...
Yes. So what I used to do then was I would enter a plane and start reading immediately. I would have a book.
Distract yourself.
Yes, so that book would distract me from whatever was going on.
Yeah.
But with time, I didn't need that. Yes, so...
Okay. Okay. So we'll be looking at what in the petition stories. It's been covered everywhere, right?
Yep.
So start.
All right. So, I mean, it's on the front page of the Standard today. As the Azimio leader wants certain things from the Supreme Court to scrutinize the results and declare him president. That's the first thing. Should that not pass, there's another option for them. He wants the court to order IEBC to preside over a fresh election. Raila also wants Chebukati declared incompetent and unfit to hold public office, right? So their prayers to the judges. And someone's asking, what do you pray to God? Yeah, actually, you pray to the judges. And number one, scrutiny of rejected and spoilt votes, after which the totals be used to compute the final tally of the presidential result. That's the first prayer. The second prayer, scrutiny and forensic audit of all equipment, system and technology used by IEBC in the presidential election, including the KIMS kits, servers and websites or portals. Number three prayer, the IEBC to be ordered to tally and verify the accounts and declare Raila and Karua president and deputy president-elect. As an alternative of declaring Raila president-elect, the court should find IEBC as constituted incapable of presiding over and rendering a proper presidential election. Prayer number 4. Declare that Ruto was not validly elected and his declaration as president be nullified, and declare that IEBC, Chebukati and 2 other commissioners committed election irregularities. Prayer number 5. The court to order the election was not conducted in accordance with the law and declare it null and void. Prayer number 6. Find that Ruto did not meet the constitutional requirement of 50% plus 1. Prayer number 7, order IEBC to conduct a fresh election in conformity with the law. And prayer number 8, declare Chebukati unfit to hold public office, and that he has brought dishonor to the country and indignity to the office of the chair of the IEBC. So this is covered from page 2 to 8 of the Standard today. And if we look at inside the bid, if we're looking at this in more detail, from the 72-page petition, the orders sought by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition presidential candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua have adopted a similar approach that the forced repeat presidential elections. They have gone for the jugular by asking the court to declare that any irregular votes should be struck off the final tally and a fresh computation on those found to be valid be done and considered as a valid outcome of the presidential election. In terms of strategy, the first strategy is an attack on the process, and the second is going for scrutiny of the numbers. The first order being sought is to have IEBC, Chebukati and the commissioners avail all materials, including electronic documents, devices, and equipment for the presidential election within 48 hours. So, essentially by the end of tomorrow. At the same time, they're asking that immediately upon filing of the petition, IEBC and Chebukati should avail and allow access for purpose of inspection of all logs of any and all servers hosted by and or on behalf of IEBC and in respect to the presidential election petition within 48 hours. Okay? Going on a little bit more, Raila and Karua are seeking a total of 24 orders from Chief Justice Martha Koome and her deputy, Philomena Mwilu, and Justices Mohammed Ibrahim, Professor Smokin Wanjala, Jokin Dungu, Isaac Lenaola, and William Ouko. In the case, they want the DCI summoned by the court to produce laptops retrieved from and seized from Jeffrey Kipnogosos, an alleged UDA political party agent, and further submit the report of the forensic analysis and the examination of the laptop and its contents. The Azimio party flag bearers allege that the DCI conducted a forensic image of the laptop to determine why it was being used at the National Tallying Center. According to them, the agents had agreed that no one would be allowed in at Bomas of Kenya with a laptop. So they're looking at this and they're saying the DCI must also then be called to give his report of this. They have also revisited the differences between DCI boss George Kinoti and Chebukati. According to them, two Venezuelan nationals, Jose Gresorio and Joel Gustavo, had more than just Kim's Kit stickers that were found on them. According to Azimio, Gregosio was a super administrator of the IEBC systems and had all the rights to administer and manage all Kim's kits that were in the field. This, they say, included removing, adding, deleting, and assigning roles to the IEBC staff.
Hey,
it goes on
and on and on.
On and on.
It's 72 pages long, 23 prayers.
Mm.
One of the things that they're also saying that's covered in the Nation is that Raila and Martha claim there was a plan which was hatched in March to manipulate the election results in Ruto's favor. Part of the manipulation, according to them, is seen in a sample of 42 polling stations in Kiambu and Bomet counties where physical forms differ from what was uploaded on the IEBC portal. In the two counties, Dr. Ruto got significantly more votes in the forms uploaded on the IEBC portal compared to the physical documents, while Odinga's votes were significantly reduced. Are you getting that?
Please say that again.
So, results are announced at a polling center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Polling station.
Mm-hmm.
Results announced at a polling station are then uploaded onto the portal through the Kim's Kit. The results on the portal are what we are all publicly seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're saying that the physical result that was actually declared at that polling station, some 42 polling stations in Bomet and Kiambu, what was physical and what is on the portal differ.
Which was more?
What's on the portal has Ruto has more votes than what is on physical.
Physical is recorded on Form 34A.
Yes.
Yes.
Same is now taken as a photo.
Which is put on the portal.
Image is taken.
Yes.
Image is
and
taken
transmitted.
and goes and transmitted onto the portal.
Okay.
So the allegation here is that there's manipulation of the portal.
So the basic question would be, how
Yes.
do you have different results if it's supposed to be essentially the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're saying that there's a massive swap of documents in Ruto's favor and is a ground for invalidation of these results. The conflicting forms share serial numbers, but they have different results.
So you have
So form here and form on the portal.
same serial number, X1, 2,
same.
3. Uh-huh.
Name of presiding officer, same.
Same.
Name of agents who have
Same.
signed, same. But number,
Different. What sorcery is this?
that is what they're saying.
Okay.
Yes? The Azimio duo alleged that Chebukati bungled a second successive presidential election and he disregarded several election laws. Now, let's come back to the issue of this bungling. Yes? So that is one issue of the portal and the security of the data on the portal. We'll be talking to the data expert at 8 o'clock to tell us how is this possible. if you listen to that, and then you also look at one of the affidavits in the Raila case, which was signed by John Githongo claims that he met somebody who allegedly was working with somebody who was working for William Ruto. I'm looking for that story as I say all these things. And there's somebody who was working for William Ruto is called Dennis Itumbi. And John Githongo's affidavit says that this person who came to him in a hotel in Nairobi claims that they had been hired to infiltrate. Here we are.
This person who was brought by a friend.
An alleged confession by a man said to be a whistleblower will form part of the evidence that Azimio La Umoja will use to discredit the August 9 presidential election. The whistleblower, who's introduced to the case by former anti-corruption czar John Githongo in an affidavit before the Supreme Court, alleges that he was part of a team of 56 people, dubbed the team, and who had been recruited to allegedly manipulate the results. A team of 10 computer specialists allegedly headed this team, according to court documents. Githongo wants to play the whistleblower's confession in private in order to put the commission on the spot about whether Forms 34A were tamper-proof and could not be manipulated in any way. He claims on August 18th, this is Githongo now, on August 18th, this is how many days after the election? 9 days after the election, and just close to the day when Chebukati had already declared a winner. A colleague of Githongo's introduced him to a young man at the Batian Hotel's suites on Agwins Kothek Road. This is in Hurlingham, Nairobi. According to him, the man stated that he wished to discuss a matter of national importance. The young man was visibly tense and terrified, according to Githongo, adding that he proceeded to ask the unnamed young man his identity, his business, his residence, and information he was about to spill. Githongo claims that the information he was given left him speechless. He revealed shocking details of how he and others were involved in a fraudulent scheme to interfere with and compromise the IEBC electoral data transmission system to manipulate the presidential election. So he says the task is said to have been to receive the Form 34A that was sent to their server or platform. The team used the platform to edit the forms before uploading them to the IEBC portal. While the other 46 were accessing, entering, and manipulating the entries, he was one of the supervisors. The task was to collect the Forms 34A from Kim's kits and send them to their server or platform, which he called Uchaguzi Tallying, and used the alias Uchaguzi 2022. After receiving the data, they would edit the Forms 34A in accordance with the instructions given and then upload the edited forms to the IEBC portal. So basically what this is claiming is that the Kim's kit was transmitting to a different portal. Mm-hmm. This different portal was the Uchaguzi whatever, and then the Uchaguzi whatever is the one that would then upload onto the IEBC portal.
Why?
And all this while, IEBC had no clue that their Kim's kit is not transmitting directly to their portal, but transmitting to Uchaguzi whatever, and Uchaguzi whatever.
Kind of thing.
You know what I find interesting as you're saying this?
Okay.
You know how it is? We talk about cartels in this country. We also talk about brokers.
Yes.
In the technological world, kumbe servers can also be brokers.
Because
this was a broker, meaning, yes, according to this story.
Actually, because they could transmit.
Yes, wacha ikuje kwangu kwanza.
Ikuje kwangu.
Yes.
I mean, it's clearing and sorting house.
Yes.
Alafu.
And then forward it.
Yes. And you, as the portal on this other side, have no clue that there's an intermediary.
You know,
and this is from 46. I mean, would it then, the question would be, is it some specific Kim's kits that had been configured to first of all send to this server and then the server sends to the portal? Or is it all 46229 Kim's kits that were configured to send to this intermediary and then the broker sends to the portal?
You know, if it is Kim's kit, it can't be 46229 only. Remember, there was reserve Kim's kit.
Yes, plus the reserve Kim's kit.
Yes.
All of them configured to send first to.
Yes, because then this word that we often refer to and which perhaps we'll get clarification in the third hour, is algorithm. Algorithm. Because if you look at the definition, depending on, which definition you're looking at, but it boils down to a system that essentially is geared towards giving certain electronic instructions. Okay? Now, all these, one gets the impression that you are actually looking at a Mission Impossible sort of like movie, that's what you're watching, or a 007 movie. But if any of this is even remotely true, the implications are actually very vast. Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, this is what is being said. And it's even being alleged that there's evidence to support this. If indeed there is and the evidence is credible, this will not touch only on the presidential election.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's going to touch on very many elections throughout the country.
Yes. And just for purposes of clarity, CT, when you talk about very many elections, we're not talking about a time in history. We're talking about the elections that took place on the 9th of August.
Indeed, we are.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you see, that is the immediate one. But if we're saying that what is being alleged is something that has probably occurred before, and that what we're witnessing now is just, should we say, an improvement, an upgrade of that particular system, then it brings to question very many things. Now, in my mind, history comes, you wonder, okay, so how long has this been going? Yes. If then
how was this?
And how did it escape very many people? Because remember, IEBC conducted a test, not once, but not twice, 3 test runs of their systems.
They did.
Here's a system, this is the result, let's transmit, then it comes here.
A bigger start.
It comes here. It comes here. Okay? So are we saying that there was another test that was happening on the side, unbeknownst to very many other people, that was testing this system? Was IEBC aware, or were just a few elements in IEBC aware, or was there no element in IEBC aware? It was just this rogue uchaguzi to place that was manipulating the. I mean,
this is where now I think we bring in people who actually understand these things a little better than we do, because everything sounds, in my mind, up in the air.
It really does.
Yes, it does, because we're talking about things happening in another realm. And I talk about manipulation, it's again in another realm, because it isn't physical live dominoes like you can say CT stood up from the seat he was sitting on and moved across the room. It's not one of those.
No, it's up there.
Yes.
Literally up there somewhere.
Yes. Now, somebody who can give sense to this thing and breathe a little life into it so that a simple mind can actually, like mine, of course, can understand
But then there's another question.
Yes.
So, let's say that Forms 34A, physical form, has a result that shows City Muga 5, Ndu Oko 2. Okay? It is uploaded.
Yes.
Comes to the server, to the public, to everybody, even in Kazakhstan. What is being downloaded from the server is showing City Muga 4, Ndu Oko 6.
Yes.
Let's just.
It was 5 and 2, but now it can be 4 and 6.
Yeah, we just
for
change
purposes
it.
of conversation.
For purposes of conversation.
Okay,
so this
so
time now, Ndu has more votes than CT, okay, than the situation on the ground. That's on the server. What was happening is the physical Form 34A was leaving the polling station, going to the tallying center at the constituency, and 34B is generated not using portal, but using physical.
Yeah.
Then physical 34As and 34B are brought to Bombers for verification, not using portal, but using physical.
Yes.
But they were also counter-checking with a portal.
Yes.
So at what point then does 34C consider portal and not physical? Because 34C is the tally of all the 290 plus 1
constituencies.
Bs.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the question that is going to be looked at here. Because when do you say something has changed? When will you say something has changed? At what point?
Is this one of those cases where we talk about the analogy of the one bad apple? Because now, if the argument, if I understand it, if there's a problem at the Form 34A...
Physical. Or server.
Both. You just say
after that will have a problem.
Yes,
that's the thing.
Yes.
From the initial, from the beginning, it's like getting your recipe. If your end result will have a problem. So moving forward, because you go from A to B to C and then finally D, right? If A had a problem, D will have a problem. And I think that's what they're looking at right now in this. So
What I'm not getting, though, is the actual A, according to this affidavit, has not been manipulated. It is the image A that has been manipulated. The actual A is what is used to tally, to create
B.
actual B.
Yes.
Right? So therefore, actual B is a true reflection of actual A. Because B does not look at photo.
No, it doesn't.
It looks at actual.
Actual number.
So then, if actual B has arrived at Bomas and it mirrors actual A, what's the point?
problem?
What's the point of even going into employing all those 50 plus people, blah 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 blah, to manipulate
why?
the image?
This one needs to be explained because sometimes when something is very clear, it's within that clarity that things have been manipulated.
Yes.
The only result would be if, and I don't know if this, what you're saying, if actual B reflects what actual A says. But is that the situation across board? Or are they looking at circumstances where, hold on a minute, B and A are different? Have an issue. Now, if they do, that's now what would give oomph to the argument that there was some foul play here.
But
because
not,
why would the numbers be different?
But not with the server.
Not with the server.
Because the server does not matter here. It doesn't come... The server is not what is producing B.
Sure, but I think in some cases what we're hearing
See, server
now,
is just
what
a
we're
store.
hearing now is that the case, the forms that were brought to the tallying centers, right, were different from what was
different from the image.
Exactly. The numbers are different from the image that had been transmitted, and that is where the suspicion has now arisen. You see?
You know, the odd thing about these things that are now beginning to look like suspicious issues, if somebody came around and could explain it to you clearly, because this is our perspective here, and we're also questioning, looking at it from our understanding. Somebody whose understanding of this situation is greater, they could explain it and it could all make sense. Unfortunately, right now, it's not making sense.
Can I say something? Maybe just stop me if I'm wrong. If I'm looking at this picture in the Standard, very simply, I take my phone, because this is the thing, we've counted.
Take a phone.
I take my phone, I take a picture of this thing, of nothing else. Of this thing, I take a picture, right? And then I send it to Eric.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
That is what you're going to use. But you're still saying to me, this is great that I've had this picture, Ndu, but now bring me this thing of which you took a picture. What we are saying is that as I bring you the picture, hard copy, there should be no difference between the picture I've sent to you and this thing that I bring to you in hard copy. But
Actually,
now
let's
what we're
put it this
saying
way.
is that there's a difference.
You're the polling station, right? You have the front page of the Standard.
Yes.
And you have your phone.
Yes.
All right? Take photo with your phone, send to me at Bomas. Okay? As you send to me as Bomas, I'm looking, okay, so Ndu has already sent. I know right now Ndu is moving from polling station to tallying center, that is CT.
Yes.
With a physical paper.
Yes.
CT receives the physical paper. CT comes to me with a physical paper.
Yes.
I look at what you sent me as a photo.
Yes.
I look at what CT has arrived with as a physical paper.
Yes.
And I see the physical paper says, Ruto, my case against IEBC.
Yes.
And what you sent me was, Raila, my case against IEBC.
Yes.
What do I go with? I go with the physical. Right? And the physical is what I'm using to do everything else.
But now,
the question is,
why should there be a difference?
Why invest in buying a phone in the first place?
Exactly.
If you know very well that at the end, when it comes to me, I will use the physical.
And if we are saying that it's supposed to be a reflection, it's supposed to be the same thing, I think there are two questions that are being asked here.
Yeah.
Why is there a difference between the two? Number one.
If one is a
true reflection of this original, why is there a difference between the two? And that is one of the questions that has been brought before the court. Number two, it's true. Why do you have all these people who are doing all this work if you're not going to regard this picture that you have taken?
You know,
let's take a break. Let's take a break. It's 25 minutes to 8. We're looking at the papers this morning. What is contained In the 9, it's not just one petition. There's Raila's petition, there are other petitions as well. And we're looking at all the other petitions that have been filed before the Supreme Court with regard to the presidential election 2022. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice
Conditions at
FM.
14 in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's sunny at 14 in Nakuru. It'll go to highs of 24, and it's 11 and partly sunny in Nyeri. Highs of 20. 22 will be the high in a sunny Eldoret at 12. It's 23 degrees and mostly cloudy in Mombasa. Highs of 28 and lows of 22, and we'll see lows of 23 in a mostly cloudy Malindi this morning. The sun is out at 21 in Kisumu, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 26 and a partly sunny Kakamega at 20. It's sunny in Kampala at 19. It'll go to highs of 26 and highs of 27 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 22. It's 5 degrees and partly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 19, and it's a rainy morning in Lagos at 24. It'll go to highs of 27. 29 will be the high in a partly cloudy Kinshasa at 22.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
We are in traffic hour proper, so says the clock, and we're looking at Landis Road is an absolute mess. In and outbound traffic is going crazy. Going towards Kamkunji, which is also in and outbound as you go towards Haile Selassie, which all comes off of Jogoo Road, which is equally as crazy this morning. Lunga Lunga also following in fine form with a lot of traffic this morning. Looking at the triple roads of Savannah, Manyanja, and Kangundo. Then further up, even to Juja Road. Really heavy traffic as you're going into the northern eastern parts of the city. All right, let's look at the western part of the city where Western's not looking too bad, but we did see some traffic trickling in on James Gishuru and on the Thika Superhighway. Really busy traffic head to head, all the way from Survey out towards the Pangani Underpass. Kiambu Road all the way through to Coffee Gardens, what we're looking at now in terms of traffic. And it's snaking along slowly just past the village market on Limuru Road out towards the city. So traffic is doing its thing this morning. It doesn't look like there's going to be a let up before 9. Let's have an eye on what's going on where you are. Talk to us on SpiceFM. KE on Twitter.
.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Continue. So the other thing that is also a big contention here is the numbers, the figures. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
The figures. See that 140,000 voters, 140,000 something, whether it's 0.01%, whether it's what.
One negative.
There's some contentious 140,000 that keeps coming up in whichever form. Whether you're doing subtraction, addition, division, multiplication, whatever, there'll be 140,000 in contention. So, this is what they say. Raila and Karua are criticizing Chebukati's behavior during the winner's announcement. They also say that before declaring the winner, he failed to share and circulate the final presidential results with the candidates, the chief agents, the observers, the media, and commission members. They say this is what happened. The petitioners contend that the first respondents' commission collapsed Tower of Babel was the final outcome of the following proceedings, facts that further demonstrate a lack of transparency and efficiency. First, 3 p.m. on voting day, public display stopped running the results that were trickling in at the National Tallying Center at Bomas on August 13th, rather not on voting day. At the time of stoppage, they claim Raila was ahead with 2.06 million votes, translating to 54.3%. Ruto was second with 1.7, which was 45%. IEBC never resumed the public display of results at the National Tallying Center, and the petitioners' agents and other observers had no way or means of auditing and verifying what was happening at the National Tallying Center or the results received and or computed by the first, which is IEBC, and second respondent, which is Wafula Chebukati. The two also allege that there are conflicting numbers of persons alleged to have voted. It is said that on August 9th, 2022 at about 4 p.m., the IEBC said an average of 52% of registered voters had cast their votes. The following day, August 10th at about 1 p.m., in his first media brief, Chebukati announced that the voter turnout was at 65.4%, which had been captured in the electronic voter identification kits. This translates to 14.4 million voters. According to the Azimio candidates, the number was reduced to 14.21 million voters in what was registered in Form 34C, which is a compilation of all the 290 plus 1, 290 constituencies plus diaspora. This was absurdly lower and not higher as anticipated. This is what Raila and Karua are saying, adding that this was an indicator that the results transmission system had been tampered with and compromised. Court papers read that the Commission cannot account for more than 250,000 votes. The discrepancy between what was written as the total valid votes and the actual computation cannot be dismissed as a simple mistake or an error in light of the totality of all the evidence and the effect of the final outcome. They are saying, you told us 65.4% have voted.
Yeah.
If you just do simple mathematics, it comes to 14.4 million. Yes. Then you told us William Ruto got 7.1, Raila will get 6.9, add all that, comes for 14.2.
200,000. Where are they? And they voted.
And this is just the 65% of Kim's kit. There are some constituencies and polling stations in Kibwezi and in Matungu in Kakamega County where Kim's kits failed, and you said you can use manual. So this data is not captured on Kim's kit.
And we
so
also
if all these voters voted and they were not even on this Kim's kit, then we should be having more than 14.4.
We did also have on the day of voting, and I believe this argument came out as well, certain individuals for whom, sporadically around the country, for whom the Kim's kit did not work. And they end up voting manually. I believe that Deputy President-elect Rigathi Gachagua was one of them who also had to vote manually because the kit...
Well, he ended up being identified, Rigathi.
Sure. But, I mean, there were sporadic cases
There was the 84 polling stations in Kibwezi East.
that failed completely.
Where manual was resorted to.
So where are
in
they?
Matungu constituency in Kakamega County, the same thing happened. And that's the argument. So if all these were not there, so what happened to the... So those are the questions that are being asked.
Yes. The questions are being asked, and then it seems to, blowing smoke up a pipe as opposed to blowing it out of one. So the question is, where... it looks like it's a numbers game, and where are the numbers? If there is adequate explanation as to where this all went, then perhaps these questions would not, have been asked.
Or maybe the 65% that you said was the mistake.
Possible.
Right? Because, you see, when you just said 65%, you can actually audit and see
was I rounding up or rounding down?
Yes, because the Kim's kits was sending the number of people who have been identified through the Kim's kit at any time. You can audit that. At 4 p.m., at 12 p.m., what did you send Kim's kits? At 4 p.m., what did you send Kim's kits? At close of the voting, what did Kim's kits transmit as these are the people who have been identified through the system, because that's there.
Sure, it is there. But does it not constitute then what would be an announcement?
Yeah. Now,
So
if somebody doing mathematics of 0.01% came up with 65.4%, you see, we've seen IEBC is capable of giving a 0.01% of 140,000. So it's what I'm saying is there's a possibility that when Chebukati was saying 65%, there was an error. He didn't say the actual number. Because what we need to know is what was the actual number. What's a percentage? Percentage, tunajua nyinyi na percentage, you have issues. You commission percentages.
There's a problem.
Just give us the actual number. You just tell us 12,213,000.
143,
yes.
like that. But and this is the
don't
thing. Is this not
for
then
us.
one of the prayers of the court, prayers to the court, is that we want the actual numbers? Because if you get the actual numbers and these percentages, then they're now
We
talking
forget
about
percentages.
We can toss them.
We
out
can
the window.
calculate percentages.
We don't need the percentages. Just give us the number. And this is what the court is being asked. That, you know, we are praying that you allow us to have these numbers, because then it will allow us to determine certain things. Because clearly, as you've said, percentage is a problem.
You know, it opens up a whole... I mentioned Pandora and the box.
Yeah.
Because when you have something that points to an irregularity, which in essence is a lack of clarity, really, what you then do, you feed into a ready and waiting structure of disbelief. Because the trust factor has always been an issue with our election.
Yes.
The trust factor with the government has always been an issue. It feeds into the IEBC. Now, the IEBC, unfortunately, even long before the elections, questions, many of which were asked, were not responded to. And some which were responded to, one would argue, perhaps not adequately. So, the trust factor and the diminishing effects thereof just kept rising and rising. So now, you bring in the various discussions around this particular subject. You're saying 0.1, you're saying fraction, you're saying this. Then somebody comes in and says, you know, can you give it a perspective and say it's a variable? It's a variable that is used in an algorithm, and if you do the maths and consider it as a constant variable, and you just look down, you'll find that if you use just a simple calculation of multiplication, you'll find that 0.1 and a constant variable will give you these same results over and over and over and over again. And you say, hey, repeat that again.
Do you now? Do you remember what you've just said?
Yes, I do remember what I've just said, because I'm simply saying, I've looked at the very many discussions that people keep bringing up on this particular issue.
Yeah.
And what you keep getting are newer perspectives.
Yes.
So now, I'm not certain whether it's providing clarity or muddying the waters. Okay? I do not envy the judges.
Not at all. But, you know, through all of this and the questions that are being asked in terms of, you know, audits to be done, simple arithmetic, etc., is it possible to actually have a clear and transparent process of running these things? Should the question arise that why does 34A not look like 34B? Why does then 34C look like it's been compromised if it is not reflecting what B and A? I mean,
can we talk of consequences?
Is it possible to have a clear and transparent situation?
Can I bring in just the little notion of consequences?
Please.
What do you think is the outcome of a situation where in our country, when we talk about truth, when you talk about honesty, you talk about it as a variable. It is not an absolute.
No.
Now, you then take that particular notion to an electoral process with the high stakes that are involved in it.
Yeah.
And then you take a Kenyan individual into that situation. What do you think the consequences of the aforementioned will be in a situation like this one here?
Yeah.
Because then you're talking, we are simply saying that you ask the question, is it possible? But the system as was presented that possibility. What we are now discussing...
Or as an eventuality.
Yes, as an absolute. Because
yes.
if you're talking about the system that and which was presented to us, that's what it was supposed to give us. A credible election that you couldn't doubt. But then the moment you bring in the notion and the possibility of interference, then, You see? That very thing that we anticipated and we thought and hoped was possible, suddenly the possibility gets dimmed.
Our problem, I think also just steps back, just adding to what you're saying, CT, is from all of us, our value system as a people. You know, so yes, we have technology. We came up with technology and said this technology shall register voters. This technology shall keep a database of voters. This technology shall identify the voters at the polling station. This technology can transmit a copy of the results. And then we still say, no, but you have to bring the physical. It happens. So it's transmitted, physical arrives, and you still have issues of, but the physical, but the copy of, this is not a true copy of the copy of. What on earth are we talking about? And for as long as somebody just stands up and raises that doubt, it stands and sounds like it's an actual possibility. Because we know ourselves. Because we know we don't trust our own selves. If you're told, CT, that day that you went to vote, you voted twice. You sit back and think, it's possible. Before you say, absolutely not, I went there once. The first thing that you think of, it's possible. That lady, the way she looked at me as she was handing me the ballot, she was looking at me like she's seen me before.
You start questioning whether you actually got one ballot paper for each of the candidates.
Yes.
Or you got two.
It's because we just don't trust ourselves. We have reached that point where we don't trust our own selves, we don't trust our systems, we don't trust nothing. So we are susceptible to manipulation. Watch out the system itself. We, the people. Why are we here? Why must we get to such a point? Why must we get to a point where in the same cycle, in 2017, in that period between voting day and the day of the announcement of Uhuru Kenyatta as the winner, there was this whole story of, Chelobe, Githeri man. People were happy. We voted. This guy from IEBC, see, he's cute. And then goes south. Same thing happens this year. First few days, it's so open. In fact, everybody in the world is praising us. Everybody, we are leading in Africa. How can you actually hold an election where everybody is seeing? How can you hold an election where social media is still active? Oh, you're so good. And then now today, all that has been erased. You're like, this whole thing was just being taken for a ride. Come on.
There's a concept that is referred to for those who study psychology. It's cognitive dissonance. We like to believe that we are a Christian nation and that most of us are Christians.
I love it. We like to believe that.
Yes, we do. And we like to believe that we conduct our lives based on certain moral and ethical principles. And yet our actions sometimes contradict the very, very thing that we purport to believe. Now, this brings about conflict. We say we are all Kenyans, but when it comes to voting, we vote along tribal lines. Again, conflict. We say we believe in what is right from what is wrong, and yet we accept bribes and we also issue out bribes. So, think of a Kenyan who is involved in everyday life and the conflicts that they encounter on a daily basis, just in their day-to-day lives, just as you are going about. So, what does that happen? You then find, what does that then produce? At some point, your mind can only deal with certain things at a certain time. And beyond that, it may not be very capable of dealing with them. That's it. And when it comes to conflict, there's a limit to how much conflict your mind can actually occupy. So what do? If I believe that I support a certain candidate, the thing I'm going to be blind to is anything that may be considered to be wrong about that particular candidate, or anything that may be associated with that candidate is considered to be wrong. Now, this is me, and this is how my support is. That's why we refer to some of this support as blind support. So you don't question and say, okay, is there a possibility that even as I'm looking at this, that there can be something else beyond what I am seeing here? Now, what this case in my mind is going to do is lift that veil, because as it goes on, there are many things that we've heard of, we've listened to, we've read, we've been told that has been in the realm of hearsay for the longest time. But now, if indeed everybody who's putting forward a case and those who are going to defend their situations can come up with the alternate facts, then you have an opportunity now to make up your mind and determine what is it that you're hearing and what is it that you're seeing and what really constitutes the truth and what isn't. But more importantly, what it says about you. Because you have participated in this process.
Yeah, indeed.
And we're all sitting there as spectators. As sure as the sun is rising from the east this morning, if on that Monday, Raila Odinga had been the one who was declared as president-elect, William Ruto would be in court. I know the allegations he'd be having. Just copy this,
Paste.
control copy, control paste. This same allegations probably would be what William Ruto would be taking to court. This system was manipulated. Then you had something like use of state resources and your government machinery, and then they manipulated the system. They played around with the server. They went to the polling centers and tinkered with the polling center. Now, nobody, in fact, Raila did not even get 50%. We should have had a runoff. Everything that is being presented by one side today could have been presented by the other side. And they just sit back and they're like, okay, now surely. My God, this was such a...
You know how explanations are given that when you listen to such mumbo-jumbo, the truth lies somewhere in between. Nah. The truth is always out there, but it's when your mind is accustomed to listening and believing all manner of convoluted things that you believe to justify a position you've determined to take, then the confusion comes in. The truth is really simply the truth. It's not the truth plus, it is the truth. So really, in my mind, the question is, are Kenyans willing to face up to the truth, whatever it is, no matter how unpleasant it is? Because this truth says, again, and I'm repeating, it says a lot about you. The Kenyan, you. Yes. Forget the candidate, you.
I think there's a certain level of acceptance of certain things that quite a number of people have to come to terms with. And it's going to be probably many years in the future to get to that point. But I think this all wraps around the almost, I don't even know if to call it, religious sycophancy that is around the person that you support.
Yes.
And it's almost like a blinding cover over anything that could be. You will never believe that there was anything untoward that this person could ever do. I mean, because if you look at the hierarchy of saints, it's God the Father, Holy Spirit, the Virgin Mary, and then, your person.
And then your guy.
It's impossible to think that they would ever be able to do anything, wrong or immoral or against the grain. And I think that systems need to be opened up very much so. But I also think that the minds of people need to be opened up even more to that realization. Because like you say, it doesn't matter which side of it you're on, that if things don't go your way, you're most likely not to be accepting of a result.
Yeah.
Look, this doesn't run away from the fact that if there were things that went wrong in an election, they must be dealt with.
Yep.
If a commission truly is at fault because they did 1, 2, 3 that they should not have done, or they behaved in a manner that they should not have been, it must be called out. It must be dealt with for future action.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think that there needs to be an extent of acceptance of certain things that has not happened. And I think that overriding everything needs to come out. It really, really does.
And I think, bottom line, we also need just to point at the politicians, all right? Let's not look at this commission as Wafula Chebukati, Juliana Cherera, and the others. Let's look at the commission as a commission that's established to run our elections. How much has the commission been interfered with by the political class? And all for what? Because each side, each politician would like to manipulate the system in one way or the other. Each politician would like to manipulate the system for the MCA seat, the MP's seat, the governor's seat, the president's seat. So they have the issue of having a truly independent electoral commission that works and makes a decision on how it wants to run an election completely out there, because politicians will not let us have it. And then they'll go to court, of course, and the first respondent is the commission. This commission bungled the election because it didn't give it to you. You didn't manipulate it enough. You are outsmarted in the manipulation of a commission that you wanted to manipulate all of you. Good morning. Let's have a conversation about data security for the IEBC in the next hour. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Nzoia. I'm Dennis Aseto. Independent presidential candidate Reuben Kigame filed a petition at the Supreme Court seeking to nullify the results that declared William Ruto winner. In his petition, Kigame argued that the whole process leading up to the results as declared by Chairperson Wafula Chebukati was marred by irregularities that rendered the final outcome null and void.
I'm here to argue and pray the court to accept that the 4 candidates were illegally nominated to run. IEBC and its chair, Wafula Chebukati, actually deliberately locked out all the independent candidates.
Kigame was barred from contesting in the polls by the Electoral Commission after failing to meet the legal threshold. In the suit, Kigame has listed the chairperson and the commission and the chairperson of Wafula Chebukati as the first and second respondents, and also includes Deputy President and President-elect William Ruto. Nabusia Senator K. Umtata has launched a petition challenging the validity of the presidential results of the August 9th election. In his petition, which was presented to the Supreme Court, Umtata wants the presidential election quashed, as well as the declaration of the president-elect and the deputy president-elect, arguing that none of the candidates who contested for the top seat attained 50+1 threshold as required by the Constitution. The petitioner also argues that the tabulation of the presidential results by the IEBC was mathematically incorrect, claiming that there was at least 140,028 untallied votes. Geoffrey Gitobu, an independent Electoral Boundaries Commission returning officer in Gishugu constituency, Kirinyaga County, was found dead. According to Kirinyaga County IEBC coordinator Jane Kitonga, the returning officer collapsed and died yesterday. Ms. Kitonga said that a post-mortem will be carried to the body to identify the cause of the death. Kirinyaga County Commissioner Moses Ivuto confirmed the death of Gitobu through a text message that was sent to media houses. And the Roots Party has summoned George Wajakoya running mate Justina Wamai for a disciplinary action for misrepresenting the position of the party. The party is accusing Wamai of making public utterances both in the mainstream media and in social media, with the first incident being on August 3rd, when she publicly alleged that Wajakoya endorsed the candidature of Azimio la Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga. The second incident cited occurred on the 19th of August, where Wamai is accused of acknowledging their competitor's victory after she publicly congratulated the president-elect William Ruto. Now, Israel President Isaac Herzog has congratulated President-elect William Ruto following his win in last week's general election. The congratulatory message was presented to Ruto by Ambassador Michael Lawton in his current office. The Israel President Herzog also invited Ruto to Jerusalem for an official visit. And police in Kisumu are holding a man suspected of killing his mother in Migingo village, Kadibo sub-county. Jeff Onyango Nyawada is suspected to have set his mother ablaze after dousing her with paraffin in unclear circumstances. According to the authorities, Stephen Alan Nyawada, the brother of the suspect, had gone to visit their mother, Roslyn Atieno Nyawada, who is the deputy principal of Migingo Girls High School. Upon arriving at his mother's doorstep, Stephen, the suspect's brother, made several frantic attempts to have the door opened, but his knocks went unanswered since it had been locked from inside. And the drought situation in Kenya continues to worsen in 20 of the 23 arid, semi-arid land counties, as acute malnutrition has been noted, with 884,464 cases of children aged 6 to 59 months and 115,725 cases of pregnant or lactating women in need of treatment, according to the August National Drought Management Authority report. The drought is attributed to the poor performance of the 2021 long rains, coupled with the previous 3 failed consecutive seasons. The number of people in need of assistance is projected to increase to 4.35 million by October if the short rains season performs below average. And the Chief of Defence Forces, Lieutenant General Francis Ogola, flagged off a team of Kenya Defence Forces personnel deploying in the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission, MONUSCO. The Quick Reaction Force, comprising of over 200 KDF personnel, was flagged over at Embakasi Garrison after undertaking a 5-month rigorous pre-deployment training that was geared towards making the mission ready ahead of the deployment. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Jogo Road, we have traffic coming into the city and it's really heavy on Landis Road going out towards Kamkunji. That is probably where you see the busiest form of traffic this morning. Not quite sure what's been going on with that this week, but yeah, there we are. Gong Road coming out towards Community, that's also pretty crazy. Langata Road, not too bad, but you're going to feed into Uru Highway and get into the city where then it stops. My goodness, the Thika Superhighway is not looking pretty. Traffic is bumper to bumper all the way past the Outer Ring Junction in from Kiambu County. Exits on the Nairobi Expressway coming out of Westlands is where we see traffic happening as well. Limuru Road, we're looking at that slow snake of traffic coming in from Village Market out towards the city. That's going to move really slowly as you get into the CBD this morning. Let us know what's going on where you are. A few minutes after 8 o'clock. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's see what's going on.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start
7
your
minutes
day.
after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation. Welcome to the third hour of the show this morning. We are live on Spice FM on KTN. City, why are you laughing?
It is a good day.
Yeah?
I'm waiting for sunshine, blue skies. Not yet there, but it will come.
Allow the man to laugh, I beg. It's Monday, he was not laughing. Friday, he will not be laughing.
So Tuesday is a good day to laugh.
It's okay.
All right, City. Laugh away. We are also live streaming the show on Facebook and YouTube. We have a guest in the studio. We'll be talking about cyber forensics and looking at the security systems around the IEBC technology. Before we introduce him to the show, let's hear the day's proverb, City.
If you fear something, you give power to it.
If you fear something, give power to it.
Yes.
You give power to
You
it.
give power to it.
If you remove the word you, then it changes the meaning of that.
It does. It does.
If you fear something, you are giving power to it.
Yes, you do.
By fearing it.
Yes.
By allowing that fear to perpetuate, you are giving power to it. Because it will become dominant, it will become a force, it will become a constant in your life.
Okay.
Yes.
Then should we have said, when you fear something, you give power to it?
You could, but in that case, we're going to be writing a new proverb.
No, we're just translating it better from Chaddenese.
You name these people every day.
Yeah? What do you think the language they speak in Chad is called? Chardonnay.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
Eric, I told you, take time, look for a book called God's Bits of Wood by someone called Semben Osman. That book gives you a very clear idea. This thing, this entity on this corner we refer to as West Africa,
yes.
At some point it was just one entity.
Yeah, with Jamaica.
Yes, connected by a railway. Anyway, enough of Semben Osman and his book.
Okay.
Yes.
Does it tell us what language they speak in Chad?
He's still there.
He's not going to
See,
leave
that's the point
that
of this
place, my
conversation.
friend.
He brings-
The people of
Yes,
Ghana
it
called
does.
Chadian.
Yes, it gives you an indication of how all the communities in that region, irrespective of what may appear to be different languages, were actually connected in one way or the other. And that's why you'll find similarity in now what was then a common language called Pidgin. And you can relate this Pidgin to that Pidgin. The differences being tampered with the should we say, the distinctive languages that are then common in those areas. But
Yes.
commonality was there.
Yes.
Yes.
George Njoroge is CEO and MD at East African Data Handlers, a cyber forensics expert. He's back in the studio. Good morning, George.
Morning to you. Hi.
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Asante sana.
Welcome back to the hot seat.
I realize that it's very easy to get caught up in stories in studios, and I was reading something. I think the other week of an KQ aircraft that crash landed in Kisumu, where the pilot and the co-pilot were involved in so many stories they forgot to drop the landing gear. And it barely landed, I think, many years back. So these things can happen when you have forgotten to go live, or you are just excited about the stories in the studios. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Last time you were here was before the election.
Yes.
And you were talking about, security of IEBC's technology, particularly on the transmission side and also at the voter identification side. And you were raising issues and saying, from what we've seen in the past, it's important that they assure us that what they have is tamper-proof. Now, here we are today. Azimio has gone to court, and not only Azimio, plus 8 others have gone to court, challenging the declaration by the IEBC chairman of William Ruto as the winner of the presidential election.
True.
Among the allegations is tampering with the technology. Now, you, as a cybersecurity expert, you have also been working on this election. Yes? And you've also been coming out on social media and various platforms talking about what you're seeing.
True.
So what have you been seeing?
Well, I think it's as originally raised, is that the technology within IEBC was not as provided, not as tamper-proof as originally given. And if you even forget about everything else and you say, yes, we've been good, I mean, the numbers that you find, their calculator was still not adding up even to 100%. So as simple as the calculator never worked to everything else, then suddenly we had a problem.
George, you're also in that part of 100.01%. Surely not you.
No, for all we know, George may be on 0.2. So, I mean, George.
So, what do your numbers, the numbers that are announced by Wafula Chebukati, what do they add up to? Is it 100% or not?
No, they're not 100%. There's a whole number is a whole number without additional decimal points. I mean, if they are there, then suddenly it's not a whole number. So, but essentially, all the issues that we raised when we met with IEBC at Windsor were the same things that are coming out today. Number one is the issue of the voter identification.
But then, if I may just ask, you are allowed to talk about these things?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
please.
there is public...
Please, technically go on. Yes.
Try and make what is available within public knowledge.
Yes, and, also,
public
and also, for purposes of clarity, you were meeting IEBC in what capacity?
Okay. So at the time, we were meeting IEBC Azimio to try and raise the technology concerns for the elections that was coming up at the time. And the issue that was raised was that the voter identification was a problem. And the issue of Kim's kit was critical to identify voters. What was coming out is that as the voters went to the polling booth, a couple of them were not identifiable. There are others who were not identified completely. There are others that were forced to be identified using manual systems. It is alleged that very many Kim's kit also failed within the platform. There are no mechanisms for mitigating the same, where somebody went to court and at least they got a court order requiring that the Kim's kit become the principal used device. Hence, the manual registers were not available in some of the polling stations. So essentially, it means I think one of the presidential candidates never managed to vote, or it took them quite some time to vote. So these challenges had been foreseen, but no serious mitigants were put in place to provide for the same.
It's interesting because when you were here prior to the election, I mean, I think it was, and I believe I asked, I said, okay, this is serious stuff that we're talking about here.
Yes.
If we're looking at a system then that essentially is not going to be able to deliver on what it said it would. And what was then the recourse that they said they would take to make sure that these things were moving along smoothly?
The guarantee that was issued, even at the time, was that every polling center would have an extra 6 KIMS kit. You would bear witness, I think a couple of polling stations voted manually. Others were not able to identify voters. You find that voters who went there and they found, yes, they were identified, but they were identified as somebody else. So there was a mix-up with the biometric data. And that in itself created the crisis that we saw, where you're seeing today, there's an allegation that the the number of people who voted for the presidential candidate, there's a serious disparity between them and those who voted for the other positions that are available, either the gubernatorial, the Senate, or the member of parliament. So this disparity is being seen openly, owing to the fact that the identification process of the voters had serious issues that were needed to be addressed at the time.
But still, at the point of identification, there was either you are identified using the KIMS kit, which has 9 ways of trying to identify you biometrically, from 10 ways, from each of your 10 fingers. If that fails, there is the alphanumeric, which is taking your ID and entering your ID number onto the KIMS kit. If all that fails, then you go into the manual register, which then you cross out the name. So by and by, there's definitely one of the 11 ways in which a voter could be identified.
Okay.
Are there instances where we've had a voter went to a polling station where they had confirmed that they are registered in that polling station and they were not identifiable from any of those?
Yes, there has been there.
They had confirmed, and they are on, when they send 77, what was that number? 70,000.
Yes.
It tells you that your polling station is SpiceFM studio in Standard Group Center, Nairobi. You come to SpiceFM studio and you are not on the list.
Yes.
How many cases that?
I have like personally have an incident where my own immediate neighbor to my house could not vote. The wife could not vote, owing to that issue, where she is available on the online portal. Her details are being replied back by the system, but at local polling center where she was voting, she's not being able to be identified. And this disparity would happen, for instance, remember the data was split into small 700 files that would be allowed within each of the polling centers.
Yes.
So it would be maybe the splitting process where some data could have been skipped, or when the query was run on the entire database, some of this data was somehow left out. And this is natural. Remember, any technology that we have is subject to bugs, subject to failure, subject to it not always working as required. So the process of transfer of data is certainly a process that would require that some data is missing.
Okay. Now, looking at the transmission, there's, of course, many questions that are coming in transmission. Would there be any reason, I mean, just from what you see, that what you've then transmitted electronically would be different from what you then hand on manually?
Now, that is a question that is being put across even as we speak right now. Is that the original form that were taken picture from the polling centers were taken using a JPEG file was created, which is a picture. Then they were transmitted to the IEBC portal. What was available at the IEBC portal? What file format was it?
A PDF.
A PDF. At what point did we change the file from a JPEG to a PDF?
I don't know.
Let's stop. PDF I've come across. The other one is called what again?
JPEG.
Okay. What exactly is it? What does it do that is different from this other one?
Now, one is a picture. Picture two.
Which one is the picture? The
JPEG.
The JPEG.
Yes.
That's picture.
Yes.
All right.
Now, the PDF is a file format that is different from...
Yes. PDF I've come across. I've even used PDF myself.
You even take photos.
Photos I take. So when I take photos, that's PG what again?
PDF.
Okay.
Now, when it's translated, at what point did that file format change? Why didn't we not have JPEG in monochrome? Because they're all transmitted in monochrome, meaning it is not colored to a simple file, to a simple monochrome file. So it means at one point that file was changed. Where was it changed?
So hold. Okay. Take picture. PG?
PDF.
No, PDF I've gotten.
Yes.
The other one with the picture. PG?
JPEG.
Okay, JPEG.
Yes.
Okay, now, when I send it, you're saying I should receive it as JPEG also?
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
I see. So you're saying when it was received now, it stopped being JPEG, it became PDF?
Yes.
Even I.
Is that an impossibility?
Well,
is it impossible for a system to convert files as it saves them?
Well, it is not
for
an
download?
impossible thing.
Because what happens, what was the transmission system? When the result is sent from the KIMS kit, it goes into a central server.
Yes.
If I remember that map that the IEBC had posted even on its Twitter. Then from that central server, it creates copies. As it's creating copies, it creates a copy for the public and it creates other copies. So is that possible that the central server, as it's creating copies for you to view, is that's the point when it's converting?
You see, the challenge with the conversion is one. In terms of forensic evidence, then the new file cannot be said to be the original file.
Okay.
And IEBC had guaranteed us that that transmission will not change. What leaves the polling center is what appears at the public portal.
That
the
was
information
narrative,
or
was
the
it not so?
document?
The document. Both.
The document has the information.
Yes.
Now, okay.
The process of changing the file format
Yes.
would certainly change something.
But not necessarily the content.
Maybe the content.
One doesn't know.
One doesn't know.
But a change will occur.
A change will certainly occur. Or a change has occurred. Or changes happened.
So does that interfere with the authenticity of the document? If we're saying that what needed to happen was that the transmission needed to happen in its original format, and if that did not occur, then we are saying the authenticity of this process then has been compromised. Is that what we are saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if I send you an email and I attach a picture between yourself and maybe it was your birthday, you expect to receive an actual email with the pictures. Not for it to go somewhere else, get translated, and then you receive it.
But remember, George, you are not the intended recipient. You, as the public, are not the intended recipient of what is being transmitted from the KIMS. It is the IEBC server. So I'm looking at actually results transmission system. From the polling station, they have a photo of the KIMS kit. The presiding officer of the polling station sends results using RTS application, which is the results transmission system application. It goes to the back office. The back office application receives and processes the information. This back office is drawn as a key server.
Now, what is that word processes?
Wait, now we go step by step. From that point, this back office sends to public portal. The result forms are published as they are received on the public portal, and the public user can see the results live. Another arrow goes to the tally centers receive results from the back office applications. Another arrow goes to the returning officer, which is the returning officer connects to the back office application, the returning officer at the constituency.
True.
Okay? So there's one central place. All this information from the 46229
there's a word
comes into a room.
skipping.
See, I'll come back to the word. Comes into this server room. Server room is the back office application. It receives and processes the information. And after that point, it now gives you a copy public information you can consume it takes to tallying center for consumption, and it has a connection with the returning officer.
As received.
Yes.
The key word here is as received.
Yes.
Yes, from the back office.
You see, when you receive a message and I sent you on WhatsApp, WhatsApp does something very nice. It forwards to you. If I send you a forwarded message, even if it said I love you and had been sent by somebody else, you realize that it's a forwarded message, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So at what point when I copy and I paste it on your WhatsApp, it changes and you don't see it as a forwarded message. You just see it as a new message, is it?
Yeah.
So the aspect of forwarding means that there is no change that has happened to the originality of that message.
Yes.
IEBC commits that as received, they'll forward to us. We don't see the arrow in our WhatsApp.
Well, you don't see an arrow when I forward you an SMS. The IEBC server is not WhatsApp. I mean, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, though, George.
In a minimalistic way, let me tell you what happens, just to try and complicate it.
Yes.
When a file is sent, it acquires its own individuality. That own individuality is called metadata. That identifies when it was created, who created it, the time it was created, which is a timestamp, and the machine used to create it.
Okay.
When it is received, that metadata doesn't change.
Okay.
When IEBC changes the file format into a whole new file, the original file is no longer there.
Okay.
What we are dealing with is a copy
of the original.
Of not the original, of what purports to be the original.
Okay.
Has seemingly some information that seems to be the original, but doesn't have the metadata of the original file that was transmitted. For you to consider one item as original evidence, it is only the original image that is the original.
Okay.
Anything else that is being presented in the public portal is not original.
Okay.
And that is it.
Okay.
And you see, remember on the 2017 Supreme Court ruling, when they were forced to provide a whole process, is to encourage the transparency of the whole process. Where that aspect, when you said it is received at the server and it is processed, what is our processing?
To maintain what you're saying, what ought it to look like? This is the thing. Because if we're saying that there's a copy of, not forwarded as received, etc., what should it be when you look at it and, for all the tech types that will go then and look at metadata and all of this, what should you see then that would determine that this is authentic in nature?
It is exactly what was transmitted. You need to realize something. In 2004, is it 2004, when Mandela vied for presidency after he had come from jail? Exactly the debate we are having today happened then. That the portal, the public portal they had at the time was hacked, and Mandela's vote were changed. And had they not realized it, Mandela would not have won that election. Because what was being pitched at the time is that votes were being moved. That processing server was processing, and votes were migrating somewhere else.
Okay.
And somebody else was winning, whereas all the votes were being cast in favor of Mandela. The same challenge we are having today, where we have a system that a technology says to be doing some sort of processing.
Okay. So ideally, what you're saying is we should all be reading into the mainframe server, to the main server of the IEBC.
What we should have is something called presentment. What is received is what is presented. You may have what you call read-only, where you just view. Somebody else will have the right to download the file.
Okay.
So every different user will have different rights to do different things.
Okay.
And this is applicable on everyday solutions that we run.
Okay.
When we have ERPs like here, your finance can pay, your procurement can order, but they will not pay. Somebody else will
Legal
approve and
can
help
view.
you. Yes. So these are the different rights that can be given to the same file.
Okay.
So essentially, what IEBC should have done is that they should not have done any translation of the originality of the file as received.
Why would anybody want to do any kind of alteration of the originality of the file that was received?
Is it translation?
Yes. Why would anybody want to do translation of it? Why would you want to translate it? What would be the reason behind saying, look, this is how people have voted. This is the picture that I have taken because that's what they were doing, taking pictures with phones and sending it. Why would anybody want to change that?
And what is the justification, for instance, of changing it from an image to a PDF file?
Okay. So what I'm asking, it's when you look at you went to the portal, right? Mm-hmm. You've looked at the portal. Mm-hmm. Can you tell the origin of the documents that you downloaded from the portal?
No.
You cannot tell.
It's only that it is grouped as from polling station Standard Group and Stream 1, but there's no... If you look at the
So
file,
it doesn't have any metadata?
No.
And it should?
It should.
So it's possible to actually have a document that doesn't have metadata?
Yes. No. What has happened is that what has been presented there has been stripped of the aspect of metadata. Like, it's not presented.
And how serious an issue is this?
Well, if it has to be used as forensic evidence, as original evidence, then it cannot be said with the original evidence. Yes.
In the absence of the metadata, the originality cannot be authenticated.
True. And that is a standard qualification for any document to be considered as original. For you to be considered as human, or the person you are, the person you are is your DNA. The DNA of any document is
my
metadata.
DNA is my metadata.
Yes, it is. It identifies you, identifies where you were born, when you were born, your aging process, your age, just from looking at information.
So ugali is the metadata of maize.
George, before we take a break, let me ask you this question. The last time you were here, you told us, as a cyber forensics person, it's very, very important that you secure systems.
Sure.
That's what you do as East Africa data handlers.
Yes.
You advise your clients secure systems.
Sure.
If you are, let's flip the coin. You are not working for Azimio this time. You're working for IEBC. If you're working for IEBC, would you have been comfortable with everybody getting access to the main server? What they're calling, what did I say they're calling it? What they're calling the back office. Would you have been comfortable with everybody reading the document directly as it has come from the polling station to the back office? And here is Eric in Nicaragua accessing back office. Here is somebody in Venezuela accessing back office. Here is George in Nairobi accessing back office. Would you have advised IEBC to do that?
Yes. Why? Because you also access your back office for your bank every time you call the bank to ask them to move money from your account into mobile money. There's something called APIs, and it allows you to integrate into a system and gives you access and gives you sort of a window into the platform, allowing you to manipulate it in sensible ways that is allowed within that rights given to you. And that would have made it easier that the question of tallying is not difficult. Remember, for instance, if we had these images as they were received, it would have been much easier even to tally. Remember, images have OCR, so where you can take a picture and cut out the words and be able to copy and easily be able to tally much more quickly. So essentially, the whole process would have eased. Unlike where we are, where now we receive the files electronically, they are processed or whatever happens, they are changed. Then you're receiving another file, which you essentially now assume to be original file. Then you start working on it and you use it as a tallying aspect. And that's why you find, for instance, is that you have multiplicity of results. Standard, who were doing their tally, was here. The next media house was somewhere else. Why is it that we could not agree on the numbers?
No, there was no disagreement on the numbers. It's just on
At
what
the
you're counting.
final tally, who has a consistent number to what was presented? Tell me one.
Another conversation. 26 minutes to 9. Let's take this quick break. George Njoroge is a cybersecurity expert. He is Azimio's cyber guy, right? Now that you told us that cybersecurity experts are also hackers, can you also say you're a hacker? Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
It's about shipping out.
You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the sheep man?
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they've been told to write composition about a sheep. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about the sheep or a sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's 14 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 24. The sun is up in Nyeri at 14, highs of 20, and we'll see highs of 22 in a sunny Eldoret at 13. 24 degrees and sunny conditions in Mombasa, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 as well in a sunny Malindi at 25. 22 degrees, we'll go to highs of 27 in Kisumu, and we'll see highs of 26 in Kakamega. Sunny conditions through Kampala at 22, and also light rain in Dar es Salaam going to highs of 27. Slightly warmer at 8 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 5. And it's raining in Lagos, quite heavily so, at 24. It'll go to highs of 27. 29 degrees will be the high in a partly sunny Kinshasa, currently at 21.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
So continues on Jogger Road this morning. Landys Road, my goodness. I don't know if there's more of Landys Road for it to spill over to, because it's really crazy this morning as you're getting towards that Camp Kunchi roundabout. Into the CBD, quite a lot of action today, and the Thika Superhighway not letting up. Just past Surveys, where you'll see that bumper-to-bumper action through and through. It's also happening on Kiambu Road as well as Limuru Road, getting into the city. James Gishuru not looking too bad. A little bit of action here and there on Waiaki Way. CBD is where you see the most of it this morning. Mombasa Road looks pretty good. How's that for star performance in terms of traffic on these Nairobi streets? Let's talk SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Try to keep things moving this Tuesday.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
All right, 23
Spice
minutes to
FM,
9. The
Nairobi.
conversation continues on Spice FM on KTN Home Online with George Njoroge. He is a cyber forensics and cybersecurity expert. We're talking about this election. So, George, somebody went to John Gidongo, and John Gidongo has sworn an affidavit, which is part of the Azimio petition. And according to the sworn affidavit by John Gidongo, this person came to John and said, "Hey,
John,
hili mambo inaendelea huko nje."
John is exclamation marks.
Hey. John.
Wow.
So, the summary of this is he claims that he's part of a group that had been hired by some people. And their job was mainly to intercept information that's coming from the KIMS kits. It comes to them. They tinker with it. And then they send it to IEBC server. And though the tinkering was in accordance with several instructions that they have prior received. So this one change, give George Wajakoya, not you, Wajakoya, X number of votes. This one, do this and the other. And then now submit that as what goes into IEBC's server. And then is the IEBC, whatever processes, blah, blah, blah. Then George Njoroge sees. How possible is that? How possible is it for the KIMS kits to have been transmitting to a different center, and then that center is the one that ends up transmitting to IEBC?
Well, the plausibility is very possible. And I use the word plausible because I know that some of these things are possible. There's something called man-in-the-middle attack. Man-in-the-middle attack happens when somebody sits between the source of data and the destination. They sit in the middle. They intercept the information. They manipulate the same, and they send it out. And I'll give you an example because this is what we do largely at data handlers. You find that, for instance, somebody was trying to send an instruction to receive payment. So you are sending an email, and you are saying, Mr. Customer, you owe me X. This is my statement. Please send me this money. Somebody intercepts that email, changes. The only thing they make changes to is they make changes to the bank account details. And then you receive the email. You receive, hey, by the way, this is from George. I owe him X. He has just provided new bank details, and I send. So that is very possible. And I tell you that with accuracy. I'll give you 4 stations that I tell you I want you to look at. I want you to look at the difference between in Meru County women rep, between the winner and the loser. Look at Mokoroine constituency for the MP, Dagoretti South, the one for KJ and Wawero, Kipipiri, Gatanga, Mokoroine, and Royal constituency.
This is for MP?
For MPs, yes. And women rep in Meru. There's a difference of 18% between the winner and the loser.
Okay.
Why is it that...
But these ones were not being transmitted electronically.
Yes. The question is, how is it possible that 4 random events, and these are the data that I've managed to sample, 4 random events that are completely autonomous of the other, have the same sort of calculatable difference?
You've introduced a different question. Because that's a manually transmitted result and counted and all.
Yes.
This one is asking specific to KIMS kit has transmitted. IEBC has tested, retested, retested their system. KIMS kit communicates with the server. On this particular day, KIMS kit is communicating with your man in the middle.
Yes.
And then the server is communicating with man in the middle.
Yes.
And IEBC has not detected it.
True.
So that you're saying that is a possibility?
It is a possibility, yes.
Probability?
About 60%, 70%. America talked about it in the election when they alleged that the Russians managed to infiltrate the election and change the results that were being transmitted.
That is an example of a man-in-the-middle situation.
Yes.
So the Russians in the middle.
Yes.
In this particular case, the allegation here is some Itumbi guy.
Are you
He's
saying,
Russian.
because you gave the example of a bank, we did have a situation which played out in the media of a certain country losing money to individuals who seem to have intercepted certain monetary transmissions and were now diverting it for their own use. This is from a country's deposit. Again, are you saying that this is another example of a man-in-the-middle situation?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now let me ask this thing, because this bothers me because I don't understand it. There's a term I keep coming across. We even discussed it earlier in the show. Algorithm. Algorithm. I've looked it up, looked at the meaning. Does it play a role in any of these things we're talking about now?
Yes, it does.
How?
Because the algorithm aspect is a question of unexplainable phenomenon that are consistently, that would necessarily not happen even in random functions, but still happens in the same consistency. So for instance, when we are saying that after every 5 minutes I'll run to the toilet, after every 5 minutes, and sequentially it will happen. Something happens sequentially at a trigger of something, then that is what we call an algorithm. And so you find it a lot in the US, for instance, where there are big games, what are they called, lotto kind of games, where somebody is trying to influence the outcome of a game. And there's 1 billion or 100 million chance to be won, whatever amount is being won. And however big it is, and some of the biggest lottos in the world are in America. But even those, as big as they are, they're infiltrated by persons who install a utility that allows it to compute a number and give somebody a random possibility of guessing the winning outcome.
So in essence, this algorithm actually sets forth a set of instructions.
Beautiful.
Which this system, in a language the system can understand, and then this system obeys those instructions, and then you have this outcome.
True.
See, this JPG thing.
You're on the money, CT.
PG-13J.
Yes.
Yes. I've moved from Word documents direct from Excel. I'm now in JPK. What was it again?
Fine form. So, I mean, George, even as we're looking at, and then it can get pretty technical. But if we're looking at then the spirit of all of this and to say, look, are we swimming in, is it possible that we'd have swum in murky waters in this election? Whatever accusations are flying about and allegations are then being made, then are we looking at the possibility of compromise of the results based on what you're saying can happen? Because we're talking about plausibility, we're talking about possibility. Are we saying that the possibility then is really high that the authenticity, integrity of this election might have been compromised from a technological point of view with what you're saying right now?
Yes, and that being a possibility means that the very will of the people is never exercised. I love what Estonia says, that when they went into improvement of technology, Estonia is a country that has highly improved on electronic technology. They say that their democracy allowed the growth of the country into a developed country by the exercise of the very will of the people. I saw a headline yesterday where saying that this parliament will be very busy. I think they put about 15 or 20 guys who have either criminal or specific charges that is being preferred on them. Is that the very will of the people? And are we subverting the will of the people by finding ways of sending people to their ghost house or to public office where else there are issues? So the compromise of technology and election denies the will of the people. And if that subversion is what we would like to address as a people, is that we embrace technology. We use technology to send our children with strangers. Somebody picks my children in an Uber and drops them to school. I have never seen the guy, but the technology tells me you can trust this guy. But we have not managed to build a level of trust with our electronic technology to allow us to be comfortable enough to say person X has been elected and they have been legitimately elected and they represent the very will of the people. That is a challenge that we must cure with technology.
You were giving an example of certain Meru County, Mukurweni, Kipipiri, Katanga. Please finish that story, and what exactly were you trying to exemplify with that story? What were you trying to bring forth?
What I was trying to do is that I kept hearing, I met a couple of MPs who kept saying, I don't understand how I lost, because all my numbers were indicating I got enough people, everybody say they voted for me. So I was trying to understand, how is it that somebody says that they are certain beyond certain, something has happened, but they cannot explain it with words, but they know something happened, but they will not pick it up.
Were they saying they couldn't lose?
They were
essentially, it's unbelievable that they've lost. There's got to be an explanation.
I mean, if I lose, usually I will greet that loss with disbelief because I don't get it. Because I go into the election knowing that I'm going to win.
Yes, no.
And if I don't win, I'm saying, hey, surely. So please, but explain.
But the question is,
yes,
why is it that the winner and the losers have an 18% difference?
A consistent 18% difference?
Yes.
In those four?
In those four.
All right. So
why?
What would it be?
I don't know. And I would like to get it from... And I looked at it and I tried to think, there were new ballot papers introduced consistently across? There's something called permutation and combinations. The possibility that I could sit there, you could sit here. You get, here...
It's a possibility.
There would exist different...
But is it a probability?
It's highly probable. And it is for somebody to go into these specific elections as they are and question some of these numbers and question some of these outcomes with a view of trying not only to turn the outcome, but to better understand how do we better avoid these kind of scenarios. And I think the best lessons we could take from this very election is to understand when we talk about transparent, open, accurate, are we able to tick all those boxes with technology and with certainty that it will be true?
But then, George, if we just use those examples of the 4 constituencies and a county, right? And say, because there's an 18% consistency in the gap between the winner and the loser, let's look back. We have got to look back into the planning for it to be, because here this is manual. This is not, there is no injection of an algorithm here. It's all manual. The only thing that happens, the only thing that happens here is at identification of the voter.
True.
These areas have different numbers of registered voters in the constituencies, in the county, in the polling centers and polling stations. Different number of registered voters. Voting happens, counting happens, tallying happens, announcement happens, all manual. So for there to be some sort of game at play here that makes sure that KJ's win over Waweru is 18%, it's the same thing that's going to happen in Meru, and same thing is going to happen in Gepipiri and in Katanga, then it means that there is a very high coordination of human mind that is also at play here.
Sure.
That the voters that turned up to vote in Katanga, there was an 18% higher number of voters that turned up to vote in Katanga on this day that voted for the winner. Similar to the number of voters that turned up, that woke up and their mind told them amuka, their mind told them enda upige line, their mind told them chukua ballot ya KJ, weka tick ya KJ.
Sure.
That would be a manipulation of the mind. Is it possible?
It is not possible. And I think what is
so
strange,
what are we saying then?
What is strange is some of these numbers that don't add up. I took a photo of something in 2017.
Is it because they stand out? They are right there at you, or is it because of a possible manipulation?
Well, there would be very many theories around that, but the one theory that I know is certain is that the possibility of that running across some of these constituencies is next to impossible.
It's very low. I want to ask another question. Now, coming back to the presidential one. All right. So what is happening at the polling station is you get identified via KIMS kit. KIMS kit fails maybe in several areas, 200 plus polling stations, manual.
Sure.
The other 46,400, 46,009 are all KIMS.
Sure.
So in 46,000 polling stations, KIMS kit identifies a voter. Voter is given ballots, right? Voter casts ballot for the president. Votes are counted, and then they are announced at the tallying center. And then that is transmitted to the KIMS kit to the server.
True.
And then accessible to George and Eric and Ndu. The manual form is taken to the constituency tallying center.
True.
The manual form is then brought to Bomas.
True.
As Form 34A, and the tally of the 34As as Form 34B.
Yes.
At Bomas, and you were there, when the returning officers were arriving, they were arriving with a bundle of the forms. True?
Yes.
And what was being verified in that verification process, as we were explained to by the IEBC, was that they were looking at the physicals.
True.
First of all, is this a true form that was issued to this particular polling station or tallying center?
True.
Security features. So we are not looking at the server here. We are looking at the physical.
The physical document, yes.
And the physical document is then what is used to tally and go into 34C. So the C is generated from the physical B and the physical A. What is the point of manipulating the server if the server is not going to help you at all in the computation for C?
Well, unless you know that the tallying system that will be used to key in this data will also additionally have manipulants within it that will advantage you and will follow the original consistent numbers that were originally posted online.
That's why I talked about instructions. So you're saying that even if the elections were conducted manually, at some point, the information would have to get into the system.
True.
So when it gets into the system, is it then possible that it's at that point that what you're referring to as manipulation could take place?
True. And these are some of the things that you would find, for instance, is that I looked at a picture of Boy Avenue in the 2017 election. I don't know whether you've seen that picture. It's available at Standard. I got it from your website. There is a picture of people having queued the 2017 election, having queued all the way to River Road. The queue was that long.
Yep.
Do you know the voter the voter turnout of that polling center was 65%? Then. This time, it was exactly the same. How long were the queues?
Yes,
very
but
short.
65% of what?
Of
the registered voters in that polling center.
So are you saying that the impossibility that or the improbability that you're referring to relates to, one, the number of voters that are currently there or registered at that particular polling station vis-a-vis those who were there in 2017, and you're querying how it is that a similar percentage
came out, but the queues
are shorter.
Not anything to go by. If you do what you call crowd sampling, when somebody's far, you look at those people, you can estimate those are 20 people. When you sample the crowd there, doesn't look like that 65%.
But is it possible that then they distributed themselves throughout the day?
I looked at that efficiency, and I was trying to...
Is it possible that, like City, the last time you went to vote in the morning, this time you went to vote later in the day?
Oh, yes, I did.
So you were not in the queue, in the longer queue that you had experienced?
Actually, the queue, I don't know how it is. Now, this is the magic of elections.
Yes.
My name, how it's configured by IEBC, when I went to check with the officials, he told me here, there were 3 people ahead of me. Was it 4? I didn't have to queue. I just sat there and chit-chatted with the official as I was waiting for these people. It was a short queue. Somebody came and asked after me, somebody I knew, somebody I was in school with, he went to a queue which was much longer. But when I used to wake up at God knows those ungodly hours, those queues
longer
were long.
Queues.
They were unearthly queues. That's why I determined to move to a different time. Yes,
later
exactly.
time of the day.
Because I figured...
Do you think it's a question of time, or do you think it's a question of numbers? I have been asking this, and one of the things that we need to try and do is look at numbers. These numbers don't lie. Is it consistently, everybody kept saying there's voter apathy. But essentially, nobody queued. The word queued for long.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is winding down, but I mean, just in terms of looking at this technology, unfortunately, it's tempered with subjectivity. Because technology surrounds us. Like you said, you put your kids in an Uber, they're fine. They're going to get where they're going because you trust the technology. You're on your mobile bank app, whatever, you trust that the numbers in your accounts is what you're seeing on your screen. Every day, across board, you apply for your passport, it's in the system kind of thing. Why then does it become so difficult or almost impossible then to trust the same kind of technology when it comes to choosing leaders? Because it looks like that's where the bone is. Why?
Because I think, in my honest opinion, the interests for this are far beyond the individual country itself. For instance, our neighbors' countries would be keen to have certain persons within power to influence specific things for their interest. Remember, the interest now goes beyond the country. We are now in a global village where, for instance, the issue of Ukraine affects us. So essentially, if we are able to influence what happens in Ukraine, it means that we're able to affect what's happening here. So essentially, it means that the interest to have people in power and in the right place at the right time is important for not only us as a country, but to even our neighbors and the international community. So it is important that the process becomes critical, and it becomes that it is impossible to infiltrate it. Otherwise, if we are going to depend on technology, if we are going to depend on it to determine the future of this country, the will of the people, then suddenly we must have some level of certainty with its capability and with its ability to deliver exactly what the will of the people is. That's it. That's a bigger picture, in my honest opinion.
And the will of the people in this instance, you're saying, is represented by whatever process we went through in voting, that the actual votes are what are presented. True. That is the will of the people.
The same question that was asked in 2017 presidential petition will be asked again next week.
And
the question is, I gave you 6 ballots. You went and voted for one person. Where did the other 5 ballots go? Because there's a serious disparity between the presidential candidate votes in some specific counties
and others.
With that of the other candidates.
George, let's take a break. Let's go to the news, and then we'll also open up the phone lines, because what we've been talking about this morning is just a bit sounding like things from Mars. George is here with us. We'll open up the phone lines in the next hour. Very good morning to you. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Nzoia. I'm Dennis Oseto. Director General, Department of African Affairs at the China Foreign Affairs Ministry, Wu Peng, has refuted claims that the Chinese government will seize the port of Mombasa if Kenya fails to service the SGR loan. In a statement, Wu Peng said that the port of Mombasa will remain the property of Kenya regardless of what happens, because the existing agreement between the two countries does not give China the permission to seize the port. A total of $3.6 billion was used to build the SGR by the China Roads and Bridges Company. Various stakeholders have been worried about the possibility of China seizing the port following the loan, asking President Uhuru Kenyatta to make clear the agreement signed between Kenya and China. The Ministry of Education has launched the new re-engineered National Education Management System (NEMIS) at Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Speaking during the launch, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha noted that the new upgraded system will provide more accurate data and is fine-tuned to serve all the stakeholders in the Education Ministry while allowing parents to monitor their children's learning. Magoha noted that the upgrade system will ease data retrieval for timely decision-making and also facilitate data reliability for all the stakeholders. Assuring on data safety, Magoha noted that the system will ensure more direct access to data through implementation of a decentralized approach to data access. Now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is warning you of fraudsters issuing fake integrity clearance certificates to unsuspecting members of the public at a fee. The Commission clarified that it does not charge any fees for processing self-declaration forms. The Commission is now calling on any person with relevant information regarding such fraudsters to promptly share the same with the Commission for further action. This also applies to cases of fraudsters impersonating EACC investigators and extorting money from the public. And a woman has been arraigned before a Nyeri court for presenting a stolen identity card during the August 9th general election. Joyce Ngonya is alleged to have presented herself at Gidwariga Primary School polling station in Nyeri town on August 9th, bearing a national identity card belonging to Susan Wanjiru with the intention of voting. The police officer manning the entrance of the polling station became suspicious of the Jitri Ngonya and informed the station's presiding officer. The court heard that police officers from Nyeri Central Police Station were immediately summoned and arrested Ngonya. Further investigations conducted by police also revealed that Wanjiru had filed a police report that identification card had been stolen and was still waiting for a replacement ID. In her defense, Ngonya, who pleaded guilty to the charges, beseeched Nyeri resident Magistrate James Masharia to pardon her, adding that her school-going son depended on her. The court ordered her to be remanded at Nyeri police station as she awaits the next mention of the case on September 1st. Still on the corridors of justice, and a woman accused of fraud has been released on 200,000 shillings cash bail pending a hearing of the case. Esther Mushiri is accused of receiving 140,000 shillings from Magdalene Gitau with the promise of selling her a car worth the same amount in a deal that was brokered between April 20th and April 24th this year in Nyeri. Contrary to the initial agreement, the court heard that the suspect never delivered the car nor refunded the money. However, the accused denied the charges and was released on cash bail, awaiting the mention of the case on August 31st. And the 15.6 million cubic meters Thiba Dam in Kirinyaga is now full to capacity, and water is now flowing through the spillway to the Thiba River. The water impounding process that started in May this year has witnessed periodical closure of the river to fill the dam. The dam, whose construction began 2 years ago, was concluded in June, approximately 2 months before the deadline. The project cost taxpayers 400 million shillings, less than the originally projected cost of 8.2 billion shillings. The project, which was done by contracted German company Strabag, funded by the government of Kenya through National Irrigation Authority and partnering with the Japan International Cooperation Agency, will double the production of rice in the Mwea irrigation scheme due to continuous supply of water. The dam will open to provide water to farmers during the dry season, allowing them to grow rice twice a year. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM.
Landy's Road
Nairobi.
is doing the thing this morning. In and outbound traffic is really heavy getting into the city. Lunga started early and there it is still. Jogo Road as well. Traffic is very, very heavy. Coming into Raila Odinga Way from Langata Road, where that is much better now in terms of traffic, but Raila Odinga Way has some traffic. Then getting out towards Gong Road and then into Community. Coming out of Westlands, not too bad. James Gishiro, though, a bit of a headache as you get to that junction going towards Waiaki Way. And we have some traffic on the Thika Superhighway, still heavy inbound, and also really heavy inbound on Kiambu Road as well as Limuru Road today. So traffic's still a thing at 9 o'clock. Let's see what happens in about half hour, see if that has changed. Wits about, folks. Let's see what's going on where you are. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
7 minutes
Room,
after 9.
the
This
only
is
way to
Kenya's
start
biggest
your
conversation,
day.
The Situation Room on Spice FM. And we continue with the conversation with John Njoroge, a cyber security expert, Azimio's cyber guy. He's here with us in the studio. We'll be opening up the phone lines to hear what you guys think about what we're hearing from George this morning, which is also mirroring what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition presidential candidate and his running mate have taken to court as their petition against the declaration of William Ruto as the winner of the presidential election. Before we continue, CT, the day's proverb.
If you fear something, you give power to it.
If you fear something, you give power to it. You fear deep state.
You will then be susceptible to believing every conspiracy theory known to mankind and yet unknown. It comes that you say, hey, this is it.
This is deep
so you're busy
state.
running helter-skelter because so-and-so said, did you read this? Did you hear this? And you're treating someone's imagination and the expression of it as the truth. And it's just that, someone's imagination. This social media thing. The few times I venture into reading what it says, I am I am fascinated.
What the social media
yes,
says.
social media says. Yes.
George, okay, you were at Bomas after the 9th of August. From the 10th, you had access to Bomas.
Sure.
You were at Bomas throughout.
Yes.
When the results started being announced at the polling stations, they were then being transmitted to the portal.
Sure.
And then what was happening is that the polling station presiding officers were heading to the constituency tallying center to meet with the bosses, the constituency returning officers.
Yes.
And they were going into all the boxes from the tallying polling station. What was happening at the polling station was results are announced agents sign, presiding officer and deputy presiding officer sign the form. A copy is pasted on the door of the polling station. And the original form is carried physically by the presiding officer to the tallying center. The constituency returning officer then receives all the forms from the presiding officers, puts them in a form, does simple math of carry one, does a total, and that forms 34B, right?
Yeah.
Takes a bus or whatever to Bomas. A border, whatever. Goes to Bomas with the forms, the physical forms. When they arrive at Bomas, because that's where you are, what did you see? What was happening? So take us through when a returning officer arrives at Bomas.
Well, what happens is that they have to be presented to the IEBC officials, who then table them to the different tallying teams, based, I think, on the location they are being allocated by the day. Then the tallying team are being superintended by the agents from the different presidential candidates. Then they will now verify that the forms as they are is what has been received. They do the tally, they agree, and then they go ahead and allow now the same to be tallied together as a constituency tally. Then it is what the IEBC commissioners are able to pronounce as the final numbers.
Okay. So the first thing that was happening, I'd imagine, is when this person calling himself Charles Timothy Muga arrives at Bomas and says, I'm the returning officer of...
this guy's talking about me as well, I'm not here.
Carry on. I'm the returning officer of Muhoroni constituency. The first thing they would do is letter ID, right? To first of all identify that this is the actual person who is gazetted as the returning officer. The next thing is letter form, and then they check security. Is this the authentic form that came from the constituency? True?
Yes.
And then now they do the math. Higher. At what were they at any point looking at the portal?
No, the portal was not being looked at that point. And in hindsight, I think that's where the blunders are. At one point, when everybody now started complaining on all these issues, this tally and all, you saw there was somebody who went to the microphone and said, Bomas is a scene of crime. With the concern that the tally is not seemingly adding up. There are so many, I think there are so many videos circulating online where any of the IEBC commissioners would go up there, pronounce numbers. Then when you tally yourself, you realize they are over and above what the registered number of people within that area are, or the persons that participated in the very election of that day. An example is given, I think, of Nakuru West. Is Nakuru town or Nakuru, one of the constituencies in Nakuru, where the tally was far more than the people that participated.
The registered voters.
Yes. So essentially, some of these blunders kept coming up. The other thing that kept consistently coming up is you look at forms and you realize this was a 5 or was it an 8? Somebody has made an actual adjustment or an upgrade of sorts to numbers.
In what world, I'm just trying to understand, knowing full well that the glare of the lights was there, everybody was there, in what world would one want to then have a different, and it could be a naive question, a different tally on the paper that you have brought in by bus or however you've come from what is on the screen? And that's part one. Part 1A then is, so what exactly was being used? The technological transmission or the papers that were delivered physically to the constituency and then further on to Bomas?
You see, that question is a very good one because it essentially becomes the bone of contention in majority of the tally. The IEBC chair at one point pronounced himself by saying that the tally we shall use is that is what is online. Essentially meaning that if it was erroneous, we will not make any adjustments. We will just record it in, they call it a grey book or a black book, whatever it's called, incident book. Record it on the incident book. Then we shall take that incident book to the Supreme Court. So essentially what we are saying is that we will announce numbers that we know are incorrect, that are inconsistent, you will go and find it out in the Supreme Court. The question is that fair, and is there any room whatsoever to make any adjustments on the numbers?
But what we're saying is that didn't happen, essentially. That it is not the numbers that were on the portal that we eventually announced. We are saying that what really happened is that the numbers that were collated in all this frenzy of papers that came to bomb us is what was announced.
No. What was announced is what was on the portal.
So what was the... No, George.
Yes. At what point did you move to the portal?
We've gone back to the portal now.
The last time I asked you,
because
said
the
you were not
question
referring to
is,
portal.
if that is the case, then why were we bothering with what was on the portal?
You see, the IEBC Commission says that if there are errors on the physical document,
yes,
we will note it.
Yes.
We will record it.
Yes.
But we will not make any changes.
Because they were told that by the Supreme Court in 2017.
So essentially what we are saying is that if it's online, if it's this thing that says it quacks like a duck, it's whatever, it's a duck. Essentially what we are saying, if it's online, it looks like this, it's final. So we will change nothing.
Unless challenged.
Unless challenged.
Yeah.
So essentially what we are saying is that we are studying and the process is problematic. The other challenge that we faced heavily was the question of number of people who voted and that tally. And some returning officers were making blunders because they were also including the question of number of valid votes and number of people who voted. Are two different things.
Sorry, George, I have to interject here. Because if at the end of the day, so now let's ask the flip question, because I think we asked this question in one form earlier on. So now let's ask it the other way. If we knew that the results on the portal is what was going to be used, then why would you bother coming and changing anything, writing and changing, if you knew that it was the portal that was going to be announced as the final result?
Maybe that was not the original intent.
But
I know you're contradicting yourself,
No,
George.
no. I don't think so.
What was being announced, that you've taken us through the entire process. Yes. Returning officer arrives at Bomas. They come with a form. The form is what is verified. What is in the form is what is then inputted into Form 34C.
Yes.
It is what is announced by the commissioner there. Form not being used as reference at the verification stage at all.
Yes.
So what is being announced is what is in the form. Physical.
Wait.
Not portal.
No, I don't get it. Form being used for verification
is a physical form.
Yes, that's what it was intended for.
Yes.
And so
we are not referring to the portal in Bomas.
So what are we verifying? Because if you're not referring to the portal, then what are you verifying?
What you're verifying?
What are you verifying it against? I mean, you have this piece of paper. So what are you looking to compare the result
with? The picture that was sent to
No, what you're verifying is you're verifying that this is authentic. Number one, that C.T. Muga is the authentic returning officer, not an imposter. Number two, that C.T. Muga has arrived with the proper form.
Yes.
Not that C.T. Muga went to Grogon and printed his own Form 34B.
It has to be a reflection of what was transmitted.
It has to have the security features that were put in by the IEBC at printing. So you're confirming the security feature. This is the authentic form. This is the authentic returning officer. And the results that have been brought here in the B also mirror what is in the A's. That is the verification that is taking place on the floor.
And the information of the A's, we're talking about what?
The forms from the tallying center, which have come with this guy. See, this guy was brought the forms by the presiding officers.
So the process of, at what point do you look at the numbers that are in these forms?
In the what?
See, the forms come with a number because...
That's it. So once we've identified that this is the authentic, the next thing now is we look, okay, so now the number. In this constituency, these are the numbers. Candidate A, X, candidate B, Y, candidate B, C. We put that in C.
Yes. But if we are looking at the numbers, would you, this is the returning officer, everything is authentic, but the reason why that person is there to bring the form is because that form contains numbers.
Yes.
Now, if you're talking about tallying means adding up.
Yes.
So if you're adding up and comparing, what are you comparing it with? That's what I'm asking.
You're not comparing.
You're not comparing?
No. You only compare if there's a difference between the B's and the A's.
No, what if what you've brought and what you have in the portal are not the same? Is
That's
there
why
a
I'm
place
saying
where you look at
this
it?
all came from
there's
in
no
the beginning.
reference to A. That I mean, there is no reference to the form, to the portal. At that table, they are not going into portal. They are not going to portal. They are only dealing with the physicals.
And according to you, George, they should.
What they should be doing, yes. Because at that point, if you see there's a disparity between what you're physically holding and what is on the portal,
yes,
then you're able to point it out and say,
This is
let's
the problem.
remove this,
Yes.
let's put this up. Because essentially, at that point, we would have used the opportunity to clean up the portal. And it would have been what we would have done is that we would have then created what we would consider as a secondary portal, where we are saying results have been received, yes, they're in the portal, they're there, yes, good. Now, each that is verified is ticked. So you'll find, for instance, there's a blue tick on each of the verified results that are certain and undisputed, and that what is disputed will be marked within the portal as disputed. And an alternative narrative provided within the portal, and an alternative tally is provided. So with a tally and a narrative say, this form seemed to be different from what we have received. Now we have essentially said that the 34A that we have proved to be original and authentic with all the security is what we will uphold. So essentially we are either deleting this, or if we cannot delete it, then we are secondary uploading. So there will be two forms available. And it creates a whole process of openness. Okay? Because if we say we are telling what is on the portal, and we are saying what is on the portal has discrepancy and would require to be authenticated. At what point then are we subjecting the public to viewing what has been authenticated as legitimate material? And we are saying we have verified the two, so that what is here and what is here is good. So that when we are saying we will tally all of us agreeing that tuko sawa. But when we haven't put everybody at a space of tuko sawa, then we'll have all these disputes that we're having today.
Okay. George, are there instances where the physical that arrived in Bomas and the thing on the portal are different?
Yes. Many.
How many?
I don't have the count off my head, but the ones are forensically extracted are almost 100 plus.
What is the difference?
Mine was not even in the numbers. Mine was the difference in terms of materials. So, for instance, you find that some of them were blatant mistakes. The KIMS kit could only transmit once. So, some returning officers would make a mistake and take a photo of the KIMS kit, of the form before it is transmitted. Before it's filled up. So, it's transmitted essentially
when it's
blank. That's one. Two, some returning officers would take the wrong photo of the wrong form.
Meaning? Wrong photo, explain, please.
Sorry, not wrong photo. Yes, the wrong form is photographed. So
instead of an A,
instead of the presidential
34A, they send 35A.
Yes. So you take the parliamentary and upload that. Remember, you only have one chance to do this. That's the second sort of materials that are there. The third one are those ones that we glaring mistakes. For instance, where you'll find that you had 100 votes, they've been reduced to 001. Or they've been reduced to 10, whatever it is, the zero at the very end.
How do you know that there were 100 votes to begin with before they were reduced?
So you will find, for instance, you can always tell a number that has been edited, has been...
Okay, what we're asking is, what are the features? What is it that you look at and say this one has been altered?
So the alteration is outrightly clear, where even you find some of them are countersigned.
Meaning manually?
Manually, yes. Remember, all these things were being filled manually.
Okay, yes.
The others are the ones that really don't add up.
Okay.
So when you do the tally of...
The numbers are there. When you do the 1 + 1 + 3 + 4...
doesn't add up to 10. It's coming up to 15. Yet we had 10 voters.
10 voters in this particular station. Okay.
The others is what you'll find even in majority of our submissions, of the submissions in the Supreme Court, where there was a debate when they were printing the 34A form itself. They printed two booklets. And that secondary booklet was said, Pole, it was done by mistake.
Wait. I don't understand. When you print the booklet, you print a certain number based on the numbers of people you expect to vote.
True.
So there are many booklets.
No. The booklets of 34As. The final...
Yes, but even that one, it can't be one booklet.
Essentially, you expect it to be 290.
Aha. So you're saying there were more than 290.
What IEBC did is that it printed 34A1
and 34A-B
and the 34A2 with different security features. And when they were caught, I said, Poleni.
They all agreed that we're not only going to use 34A1.
Yes.
Then right now, what you're seeing...
So you're saying is that there are some instances where 34A2 has been uploaded.
Many of them, yes.
Okay. Now, my question, all these things that you've said are on the portal. How different are they from what arrived at Bomas? So when I hear that there was a B that was uploaded on the portal, of course, it's not a B that arrived at Bomas. So that is a glaring kubaliane to Swende. Is there an instance where a 34A2 was uploaded on the portal and a 34A1 arrived at Bomas and they had difference in numbers?
Yes, those are there.
So
and many of them.
So that the one that is on the portal, 34A2, has George at 70,000, and the one that arrives at Bomas has George at 45,000.
Yes.
I'm still confused. This Form 34, I mean, we're calling it 1 and 2. Were they actually indicated from 34A1 and 34B?
No.
They just from 34A.
Yes,
but it was a booklet.
The difference is the security features on each.
So we are calling it 2, but it isn't indicated 2.
No.
But the security features is what makes these forms different.
Yes.
And you're then saying that when matters came to Bomas, the forms came to Bomas, you suddenly found that there were Form 34, the variety of Form 34 that was brought was not the variety that had been agreed upon that
they said
would
they
be
would
used.
not use
the
a
different
certain
species.
booklet.
Yes.
And it turns out, according to what George is saying, that they did.
You see, the commitment given originally was the intent was not clear. But when the same came up, there was a conversation and agreeable. Let's not print this. And it was done. But that commitment seemed not to have been lived up to when it comes to IEBC. Because the essentially what they did is that they printed everything, they brought out everything, and you find that mistake. The other mistakes, for instance, you find that is what you were saying on the D-Day when you found your constituency ballot papers in the other side of town.
Yeah.
And essentially, within an hour, I think there's one. I'm not sure which one it is, but within an hour, the actual polling station on the other side is open. So the question is, does it mean that we had two sets of ballot papers for that very constituency that were in a different location printed, so that when they were discovered on the other side of town, or say Poleni, these ones will be recalled, and the disparity in distance means that they couldn't have gotten there within the hour.
So were they?
I don't know.
We don't know if they were recalled. Do we see from a total tally that it would have included them? And I think, look, it looks like it's menial, and it's like it doesn't really matter in terms of the details. But if looking at overall, then it actually does.
Yes.
It does matter. But and this is the thing, going back to the technology, is it absolutely possible? I mean, I've seen a comment here that somebody said a few minutes ago and said, look, we're not supposed to depend on this technology. Technology is then supposed to enable the human factor to get things done. Are we looking at that? So, but then if we do that, that also opens up the possibility for the manipulation of the same technology to bring about desired results.
You see, as much as we want to depend on technology, it's a question of its influence on our decisions. And its influence on the final outcome. When the issue of Cambridge Analytica came up, it was a very good story on how much data was used to influence decisions. And it's suddenly what is happening right now, where the buyer behavior, for instance, is being influenced by some of the content that you're seeing online. If tomorrow, for instance, you feel like you want to take your son or your child for holiday, and you just Google holiday, the whole day or the next couple of days, you keep seeing hotel pop-ups and all that. And it's behavioral driven because of what technology is doing. So essentially what we are doing is that as much as we want to depend on technology, we want to ensure that the free and actual intent is demonstrated in the actual outcome of the very election that we will be having. So it is the enablement of technology that we want to depend on, not the capability of the technology to be used to influence us that we would like to take advantage of.
It's 29 minutes to 9. Let's take this quick break. We want to take a look at the weather and traffic. George is still here with us and we're having this conversation. We'd like to open up the phone lines now. You've heard what the issues have been. This is basically what is contained in the Azimio presidential petition in terms of challenging the use of technology in this particular election, in voter identification and in the transmission of the Forms 34A to the IEBC National Tallying Center. When you listen to what George is saying, number one, what's your reaction to it? And number two, is it believable? 0719-012-600. Let's hear from you after the break. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
It's a cloudy morning in Nairobi, 16, highs of 22 today and lows of 13, and we'll see lows of 13 as well in a sunny Nakuru at 17. It's 15 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 20, and we'll see highs of 22 in a sunny Eldoret at 17. The rain is coming down now in Mombasa at 25, and it's partly sunny at 27 in Malindi. Sunny conditions in Kisumu, highs of 27, and also highs of 26 in a sunny Kakamega. It's partly sunny at 22 in Kampala, and we'll see highs of 27 in a rainy Dar es Salaam at 23. Slightly warmer at 10 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 19, and we'll see highs of 27 in a rainy Lagos at 24. It's 22 and sunny in Kinshasa, highs of 29. 28 will be the high in a cloudy Beijing going into evening Tuesday. And it's 18 and cloudy in Paris with highs of 28. We'll see highs of 26 in a cloudy London at 19. Partly cloudy New York, 23 degrees. Still Monday night coming into early Tuesday. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 22. All right, Kamkunji, going into that roundabout, really heavy traffic. Traffic hour says we should have been done by now, but I guess not. Still pretty busy on Gong Road, and this is after the roundabout at that place is called what? City Mortuary. Thank you very much. We're also looking at the Pangani underpass as you're getting towards the city. That is also quite heavy. Kiambu Road still with some traffic today, and Limuru Road still pretty busy as you're getting in there. Coming out of Westlands, Ring Road Westlands is busy as well. So traffic hour might end later than we anticipate. Keep our wits about, folks. Let's know what's going on through the morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Morning 7 to 10, George Njoroge from East Africa, who's also a cybersecurity expert for Azimio, is still here with us in the studio. He's been making very many allegations. And those allegations are with regards to the alleged interference of the technology system, the IEBC technology. So the question we are asking is, do you believe the allegations that the IEBC's technology could have been infiltrated and manipulated in this election? And what else is your reaction to this? What do you think? George, I want to ask you then about the agents. So at every polling station, there are agents. There's an agent for every candidate, or candidate himself is expected to be present.
Yes.
Is allowed to be present.
Yes.
So when the presiding officers at the polling station are filling out the form, 34A or 35 or 36A or whatever, they are also witnessed by the agents, either candidate agent or party agent. So what you have, you as Azimio people, what do you have from your agents? What you have from the portal? What arrived at Bomas? What is the difference? Is there a difference between what your agent signed at Bomas and what your agent brought to you? Because the agent is also given a copy of the result, the Form 34A, at the polling station.
Yeah. Well, there is a difference, and the notable difference are some of the changes that have happened to some of the forms.
Yeah.
I may not speak to the many polling stations. Some of them, we found that there are issues with agents. There's another office that is responsible with that. I may not speak to them, but I can only speak of forms that I've seen that have been altered, where essentially what you have and what was presented has alterations. And those alterations will most certainly have happened after the vote tally has ended or the forms were being transmitted.
So in this particular one, you're talking about what your own agent has presented as A and B versus what the returning officer is presenting as A and B are not the same.
Yes.
In how many instances are we talking about?
I haven't seen many personally, but there are a couple of them I've seen. And what is there is the alteration of the form. An alteration where votes have been added or subtracted.
Yeah. Is there, because we're introducing the human element, is there ever provision for mistakes? Like, when you're writing a check or something and you make a mistake, okay, so maybe before you could countersign, now you have to chuck the whole thing out and start again, right? On this form, is there possibility for you to get a new form, countersign, say, okay, I made a mistake, it's actually an 8, it's not a 5, and then I sign against it? Is there provision for that to happen? Because, again,
I wonder, and I've asked myself many times, owing to the finality of the 34As, how best do we ensure that these kind of mistakes don't happen? Do we have a typewriter for every of these 34As? Do we have pre-cut numbers? Just mine is 5, putting the 5 and a 4, and just that. It would be something that would be nice to have a conversation on the same, essentially to try and fix this alteration issue, because you will find that almost 40% of the forms have been altered. I don't know whether some would be legitimate, some of them would be mistakes, but essentially this technology would come in and solve this. The question is, what will that be? Remember, the last time these kind of alterations were not as much there then, because there was electronic transmission of text tally, which essentially made it easier. When it's a 5, it's a 5. It's texted. But this time they never
also
used
made
that.
it easier to inject an algorithm.
Yes.
To add them. Let's go to the phone lines. Mweni is in Tala. Mweni, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How you doing, Mweni?
I'm well.
Good to hear from you.
Now, mine is a story that relates to what you've been discussing today. Early this year, when EABC personnel were going around verifying the register for voters, some 2 girls came to me. I was at a shopping center, and they came and asked me for my ID number, and I gave out my late mother's. My mom died last year in April, but I knew her number offhand. So I gave them that number, and they checked it on me. Oh, yeah, you're registered. You're going to vote at such and such a place. Then I told them, definitely I will. The only difference is I'll vote for my grave. I said, what do you mean? I told them, because that is my mom and not myself. early that morning of voting, now I'm talking about 9th, I decided to go to the voter station where my mom, polling station where my mom was registered to check whether she was actually in the in the list. They pinned up some list, and I checked. She wasn't. But guess who I found there? My late uncle, who died last year. No, who died in 2020. My question is there a relationship between the names that are pinned up there and the ones that are going to vote? Because if there is a relation, then my uncle voted at this poll station. I am willing to be a witness because his name was there. He died in 2020, to be precise, May 2020, my dad's younger brother. So I wonder whether even the dead voted. And what was his name doing in the list? I questioned somebody, one of the agents later, and I asked him, I found my father's brother's name on the list outside. He told me, he was not the only one, there were several. So I asked him, why put up names of the dead? Obviously, they couldn't answer because I don't think their knowledge takes them.
Mwani, do you know what happens? How is the voter register updated to capture the details of if somebody has died? Obviously, they're not going to report themselves and say, now, get me out of the voter register. So how should this name get out of the register? Do you know?
I thought there's a coordination between the registry of the dead and the IEBC register so that they cancel out the ones who are going to vote. Because as soon as I told them that was my mom's number, ID number, and I went to check on that list, she wasn't there.
She wasn't there anymore.
She wasn't there. And because I alerted them. Had I not alerted them, don't you think her name would have been in the list here?
But there's also a possibility that the name wasn't on the list. And, the thing about technology, it can have a glitch.
Yes.
So it is possible.
But really,
yes.
Yeah, I'm asking,
Yes.
Isn't there a coordination when IEBC is updating their voters list or register?
Yep.
That they coordinate with the registrar of death and birth?
Ideally, that is the process. And that's why they bring in that auditor, the auditing firm, to go through this and counter-check. And that's why at the end of the verification exercise or the audit exercise, the IEBC came out to say, so we've cleaned up our register and this is what we have. So clearly, they hadn't cleaned it up.
And surely, 2020 is quite far from 2022. Why hadn't they gotten rid of my father's younger brother's name from that list? That means that he might have voted and the dead shall vote.
Right. Good questions, Mweni. Thank you. Let's talk to somebody else also on the line. Samuel in Kasarani. Good morning.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Very well.
Now, I've been listening to your conversation this morning, and it's quite interesting. One, what was being verified at Bomas? Now, George is saying at one point they were not looking at the portal. But I thought that was the whole verification thing. That what is on the portal is the same as what the returning officer has. If not, it should be raised immediately. It wasn't raised immediately. Now he's telling us they were not verifying. As a Kenyan, as a voter, I feel defranchised. I feel cheated. Because why did we spend 6 days in Bomas giving verified results? The IBC officials would come there and tell us these are the verified results for, let's say, Naivasha constituency. So are they lying to us? Were they verified or not? And what is verification? In our, and sometimes I like using, I'm a layman when it comes to these things, right? So many of our Kenyans are laymen. So what we thought was, these guys were looking at the portal and looking at the 34A maybe from Kinungi Primary School, right? This is the form from Kinungi Primary School, Stream A. This is correct. Whether they did it wholesomely or sampling, it doesn't really matter to us. The question is,
there has to be some referencing at some point.
Yes, whether it was a sample or whether it was the whole 46,000 plus, It doesn't really matter to us. What matters to us is, did you guys verify? And to us, the verification was portal versus physical. So when it comes and says, oh, we didn't look at the portal at one point, we feel bad, we feel defranchised. I mean, and this cycle, every time, Kenyans get tired.
That's true, Samuel. Let's hear from Patrick in Vihiga. Patrick.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
I have picked a few items from the conversation that I would like to make clarity on.
Right. One.
First, the question of voter turnout. Long queues and short queues in relation to what has been happening in the past. I think IEBC has improved on that area because names are arranged according to letters of the alphabet.
Yep.
In places like Nyanza and Western, where many people start with many names start with the letter O. You find in every polling station you have long queues in that stream. Whereas one has perhaps a letter beginning with the Z as a surname or vice versa, you may find about 10 people or even one in the queue. So the moment you enter the station, you will say voter turnout is low or there's voter apathy, but that's not really the case.
Okay.
Because in every polling center, IEBC has arranged streams not to have more than 500 voters. So in some places you find the voting ends at around 4 or even 2.
That's true.
That's the people on the queue, the voters on the queue.
Issue number 2, Patrick.
Issue number 2 is on the countersigned forms. I think it's a normal practice. You cannot countersign that form and it becomes a valid form because these forms are quite many and they are handwritten. So if one has a mess, then there is no need to alter the figures, but just rewrite it. And then if this the presiding officer, you hand it to the RO. Another problem is the period given for training of the IEB staff on the ground. The presiding officers, the clerks, and so on. They are undertrained, and that the ROs also are transferred from one region to another, not necessarily where they are born, and don't normally come with vested interest. So you find a presiding officer he comes from Siaya, then he's posted to Kakamega, and you also bring people from Siaya to Kakamega who are not trained for the job. As it happened in the previous elections, you find someone is being given the job today when the polling is starting today, and he was never trained. So that's an area where IEBC has to upscale because our presiding officers are not permanent employees of IEBC.
Yeah.
And maybe in some cases, due to carelessness and so on, those errors are bound to
happen. Patrick, allow me to take other callers because we have other callers on the line as well. Dr. Mike.
Yes, hi, how's it been?
Good morning.
You're still in this country? Ama, you came back to vote?
No. In fact, I'm counting my losses. Very soon, I think I should be leaving. Now, that's not the point. Now, I have a question. Mine is a basic question.
Okay.
I went to a polling station with my wife. My wife was not found on the KIMS. Unaona ile kitu tulikuwa tunaweka kidole. No, me am a layman in there.
Yeah.
Now, when she was not found there, they went manual. She was made to sign some things. I don't know. But nothing happened to that register, that manual register with her name, you know. It was left intact.
What was it?
Not just my wife.
So she
my other friend.
So what happened? She filled out a form?
She filled out a form. I think there's a process she went through.
Okay.
I cannot. Okay, I was not there. My name starts with M. Hers starts with A.
So you're in a different
So
polling
we were
station.
different places. Yeah.
Okay.
But what she told me is nothing happened to her name on the manual register. So could there be what happened with these names on the manual? Now that the Court of Appeal allowed for the use of the manual in case the KIMS kit doesn't behave. What actually happened to the manual part of the voting process? Because could that have created something that is actually creating further to this case currently in the Supreme
Although
Court?
there's also a question to Mrs. Dr. Mike. At the point of filling out at the point of filling out this form,
yes,
was she being identified alphanumerically on the KIMS kit? Because that's also a possibility. So they tried the fingerprints, they didn't work.
Absolutely.
Then the next thing is she produces her ID, they enter the ID on the KIMS kit.
Okay, she did not see anything, any machine, any gadget. I don't know what they did, but what she says is she asked them, actually, now that I have voted, is there a possibility that now that nothing has indicated that I came and voted apart from these things you've made me sign, that again it will create a loophole for somebody else to come and use my information to do a vote? That's the question I have.
Okay.
Up to today, we've never had an answer.
Okay. Big question. Big question. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Just as in Kisii.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a question to you. Because overall... Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Justice.
Yes, overall, I've noted that it's like the Raila side. These guys have not invested in the mathematics aspect of the election. Because they have the cyber security guys, every other personnel, but
they don't have a calculator.
Yeah, exactly. Look, in a scientific context, election can be categorized as a full phenomena because they have observable facts and itself is an event. Now, when you go in the process of counting the votes, counting that is, then you go to the process of tabulation, where you put the data in a way anybody can understand and do some addition,
Just as
and so on.
Just as
Yes.
hatukusikii vizuri.
Yes. You said yes. That's okay.
Just try that.
Yeah. Now I'm asking about that process, the mathematical aspect of election, because when you start the tallying or the counting of votes, that is the first process. I'm not concerned about the hierarchy which may happen about counting or tallying because that one, let's leave that one aside. Then you go to the process of tabulation, where you put the data in a systematic way such that you can do some transformation now. And we go ahead and do the transformation. That includes now, in the case of IEBC, they just do data transformation to percentages. The main idea behind transformation of data is to make it heuristic, such that anybody, but just a look at the data I see, for example, if it's Raila has got 50%, I can just conclude Raila has won. Then when the guests they start, there were certain counties or other areas where certain individuals won by 18% consistently, 4 of them. That 18% is the final process of data, the transformation aspect. How can you use transformation aspect to rule out an illegality of a process of tabulation? Because the final process transformation should only be used to communicate. And any illegality should be based on the raw data before the tallying. The tallying. So if they would be saying you cannot create any meaningful relationship in a transformed data. For example, 18%, you can't say there is a linear relationship, there is a quadratic relationship, or there is a power 3 relationship or logarithmic relationship. But if they use the raw data, they can then tell us maybe these guys won. Because if somebody won by 18% of what? Of how many votes?
So go to the raw data and stop worrying us here with percentages.
Data, create a relationship and tell us these guys were linearly related in the winning, which is impossible maybe, or they were quadratic related in winning, which is impossible. But now when you use transformation, which is the final process of data, that is mathematically incorrect.
Thank you, Justus. Thank you for the point. Frederick in Bomet.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Frederick.
Yeah, I've been listening to the conversation going on there, and I just deduced several things here I want to highlight. First of all, I mean, you're dealing with the main thing here, which is trust. We don't trust anything as Kenyans. And therefore, we need to come up with a system which is foolproof. Okay? Not to solve our trust issues, but to make sure that whatever fears we have been filtered out. Now, from what I've heard from George is that we need to have a system whereby whatever has been uploaded, when you counter-check it with whatever the arrows have got from the 290 constituencies, plus that one which is diaspora, we have that one portal which has loaded from the 4As, and then after that, we have another extra portal, actually, or the alternative portal, which the data which has been verified, so that we can have, because we can have raw data uploaded plus the verified one. Because I engaged in an online conversation with one of the analysts you brought yesterday, Gavara, and then from what I got is that those forms are not supposed to be changed, or the errors are supposed to be kept as that.
Yep.
You know, but we really need to have the correction of the same in an alternative portal, whereby what George has said that this one was uploaded, but from whatever we have counter-checked with what has been brought by the arrow is that this one has an error, and therefore, in front of all agents, that this one has been not rectified, and this is a true and verifiable results confirmed by all the agents present in the BOMA of Kenya.
Yeah.
That's first thing. Number two is that we are going for these companies which provide these ICT or, the ICT help, that we need to go for a reputable firm, unless we're just planning to fail from the beginning. Why don't we go, and allow me just to mention, I know they have not paid for their advertisement fee, but why don't you go for Google? A very reputable company, which you can just give them the specifications of what you want, and then they'll just configure to that. Therefore, we can hold them accountable. But when there are these issues of these companies that are raised from way before about the Bango election, I know there are some places where they had a success, but when the company has some questions, you need also to go for one which is only like to pause, and then you go for the one which is repeatable and every party is okay with.
That's true. Thank you, Frederick.
That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Okay. All the feedback.
Very good feedback.
All the feedback is in.
Very, very good.
As we conclude, George, so what do we expect to hear from your side when it comes to this particular petition? What will you be saying? That the servers were hacked, that the data were manipulated, that the polling stations were... What is it? What is the thrust of this issue?
I think the simple bottom line is that the technology was designed willfully to fail. And that in itself should be the aspects that should be driven. And one of the things that I would want to hear from the Supreme Court is the bungling of election should be made a punishable offense, either by making it treasonable so that we send people to the gallows, or we get people punitively punished for some of these things.
Individually held responsible.
True.
Thank you very much. George Njoroge is Azimio's data guy. He's CEO and founder of East Africa Data Handlers, the company that also does all these cyber forensics and cybersecurity jobs around the country. Thank you very much for joining us and for staying for 2 hours. Came for lunch, stayed for dinner.
It's a thing.
At this rate, you might be here for breakfast.
And thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, the 3-year-old SpiceFM. As we celebrate our birthday this week, we keep saying thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I hope you're living in the cake. Eh?